request that everybody silence their cell phones. Okay, the invocation will be offered by Pastor Mickey Bryce from Center Stage Church, and the pledge by Supervisor Goodman for anyone that wants to participate.
Thank you. Let us pray. Father, today we thank you for who you are. We thank you for your creation that we can enjoy in this beautiful state. We thank you for our country and the freedoms that each of us enjoy. Today, Father, we ask for these leaders and managers, for discernment in the matters of state before us, for courage in the face of possible difficulty, and for wisdom in governance. Would you bless these supervisors today in these proceedings? We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the prayer. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Call this regular meeting to order. What? Yeah. So in order to make this meeting go smoother, we have some executive sessions that were at the end, but we had a scheduling conflict for one of them. We're going to move it to the front. So instead of have everybody, for convenience, we're going to try to do it all at once. If I'm going to ask for a motion on that.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
And that is approved. So we're going to go to exec. So you guys are going to have some time. Just think of this as like a mixer or something. You guys can all mix among yourselves for a while. We'll try to do this as quick as possible. Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes. So we're now back in session. And apologize for being out of here and being mindful of everyone's time. We're going to move item number 6 to right now so that employees and family can get back. So we're going to go to item number 6, presentation of certificates of service to employees 20 and 35 years. Leo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Today we have the privilege of honoring 5 of our employees for their years of service. And let me, if I could, just please announce the ones that I'm not sure if they're here or unable to attend, so we can make sure to honor them, even though they're not here physically. First, we have from the Pinal County Sheriff's Office, has served us for 20 years, Leo Arpash. I wish I knew how to pronounce it right. Aparicio. Thank you. And is he here today? No. Okay. Well, he's been with us for 20 years, like I said, and he's currently a sworn lieutenant. And then we also have Deborah Lopez, who's been with us for 35 years. Is she here today? Great. Well, thank you, Deb. And has been here since 1987. And so thank you for your service. And did you want to say anything? And Chief Thomas, did you want to say anything?
I know. When I do this.
Uh-oh. Hi, Chief Thomas from the Pinal County Sheriff's Office. Supervisors, as Leo said, she's been with us since 1987, which is way before I got here. And I was actually still not even, I'm not much taller than the podium, but I was even less taller then. Deb is an iconic figure, and as is her husband, Mike. Mike was a deputy with us for years. Mike's son, Jason Lopez, you'll recognize the name. He served with us and was killed in line of duty in 2001. So Mike and Deb have been a big part of our PCSO family, and Deb she's, I don't know any other way to describe her than our mother figure. She's taken care of a lot of us through the years, and is just one of those people that I don't know that she's ever going to retire. I think she's just going to stay here forever. And we appreciate her greatly, and that's 35 tough years that she's put up with a bunch of knucklehead cops, so she deserves a big kudos.
Next, we have two employees from Juvenile Court Services. First, we have Susan Patterson, who's been with us for 20 years, since 2002, and is a detention officer in the Juvenile Detention Center. And I think she is here present, but I don't think she wants to speak. But is Denise here? And I don't know if Denise is here. Oh, hey, Denise. She may not be. Okay. Well, we have another employee, Stacy Blackburn, who's been with us 20 years and is a probation supervisor. I think Stacy is here and does want to speak.
Good morning. Denise Smith, Juvenile Court Director. Stacy and Susan, can you come up here? So I have to apologize. I didn't know Susan was on the list to receive her award, but I can say a few things about Susan. Susan has been with us for 20 years. She's worked in the Juvenile Detention Center the entire 20 years she's been here. It's a tough job in the Juvenile Detention Center, and we've asked a lot of our juvenile detention officers. It's not just checking to make sure that they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, but it's more programming and mentoring with the kids, and Susan has done a really good job with that, so congratulations, Susan. Stacy has been with us for 20 years as well. Just a real quick story about Stacy when we first, and she never lets me forget this, but we interviewed Stacy over the phone. She came from Michigan, and it's always kind of leery about, hiring somebody when you've interviewed them over the phone, but I'll never regret 1 minute of that decision that I made. Stacy is a leader in our organization. She's been doing supervisory work not very long. She could have been doing it longer, but we kept asking her to apply, and she just didn't want to. She wanted to continue to do direct services with the kids, and I understand that. Stacy's been heavily involved with initiatives that we have with the state, local initiatives. She's the liaison for the minor victims of sex trafficking. She works pretty intensively with our crossover youth population, kids who are duly adjudicated delinquent and dependent. She is, just recently we had a new adoption of a code, judicial code. Our Chief Justice signed off on that work, and Stacy was heavily involved in that. So she's a great leader. She's a leader in our organization, and I hope we can keep her for another 15 years. So congratulations.
And last, we have Mike Campbell for Public Works. He's been here 20 years. He started back in 2002 as a basic operator and as a highway superintendent today, and has built many miles of roads. I don't know if he's here today, but I see Andy. Is Mike here? No, he's not here today. Well, thank you, Mike. He's building roads right now. We need it. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, everybody, for your service. And that's all of us. So those are here. If you want to take a picture with the board, you can do that now.
Yeah. Okay, well.
And looking here at 3, 2, 1. And again, 3, 2, really
So we're back to our regularly scheduled program and call to the public. And I have one request. Yes, that's right. Number 2, I had a mark there already. Discussion and follow-up regarding the 2022 general election handling process review remedies. Geraldine.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board. This will probably be the last update until you ask me for another one. We wanted to let you know that the team is currently working on establishing procedures for every task that we have in the Elections Department in order to conduct successful, transparent, and accurate elections. We are starting to build a day-to-day calendar that we will build out from all of our elections that will give us the marching orders for how we conduct our business and the processes and tasks that need to be completed so that we can ensure the elections are done properly. We are continuing to recruit for team members to join the team, and I want to tell you, I think that we are beginning to gel into a team. We hope we can add some experience. We know we've had some experience. It's been invaluable for us. We are in meetings. My team and I thank you very much for the energy and efforts that you're putting into the building for the Elections Department. We are having design meetings on a weekly basis. It's very exciting and it's much needed, and we are very thankful. We went to Pima County and we took a tour of the Pima County Elections Department. That gave the design team, they took some engineers and also my team an opportunity to see how other folks do it. It was very useful. Their building was not initially designed for elections functions, but they have modified it and gave us some good ideas. We are also, at least I am, we are currently following all of the legislation that is being introduced and having some input into that process. And I think that's about all that we're working on, which is quite a bit. I don't know if Dana Lewis has anything, if she's still here. I don't know if she has anything else she might like to add from the recorder side.
We're doing all the same stuff. Sure, why not? Thank you, Jerry. Good morning, Chairman of the Board, Surdy, and Board of Supervisors, Dana Lewis, Pinal County Recorder. Would love to take this moment to tell you what we're doing on the recorder side of things. We've been working with Jerry and the elections team. Of course, Supervisor McClure has been there in regards to the new space that we hope to inhabit in June of 2024. Prior to that, though, we will have the PPE election in March of 2024. So right now, the recorder's office is working to adapt our current spaces so that we can allow for a training, some education, and crossover with our staff. That means we have to move people around. But it's going really well, I would say. We're also partnering with the Arizona Secretary of State's team to create a mock election in August because we're going to do certification probably in July. So it would be really advantageous for us then to take that certification and training and then put it into practice with some scenarios. So we'll be doing that. Of course, you all know that there's a lot of legislation going on, and we are working to peel through that and put input as needed. I'd like to say thank you to county management. We worked for about 6 months to create a market study for the recorder's office and our staff, and successfully were able to get many of our staff much needed pay raises and also get supervisors and the pay rate that they deserved, which that falls over into retention of staff, which we're learning in the elections world is imperative to us keeping our legacy staff. We are working with our AVID teams weekly to do super user calls, training, and are currently working them also with some ERIC issues we've identified. I'm willing to take questions.
Supervisor Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just what was the acronym for was it the PPP election? Or what?
The PPE election is the presidential preference election that will occur in March of 2024. Yes, sir.
For the audience. Thank you.
Yes. Anything?
No, back with something that Geraldine mentioned. Yeah, we've been doing these almost every meeting, but we will have to go to, I thought maybe quarterly, but quarterly is a long time, maybe monthly or as needed but we do have a couple issues coming up where we are going to talk about some election things. So, so just on everybody's mind that we will not be doing these every meeting. We will eventually go to just as needed.
One of the other things to add that I did reach out to the county party chairs for the Democratic, the Libertarian, and the Republican Party to create a voter education working group, hoping that they'll identify one person from each of your areas, and that will work with us on a monthly level so we can keep them abreast of legislation, explain tech and how it grows with us. Also, there's a lot of things that happen in off-election years that the regular community does not know about, and we hope to educate them on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Okay. No other comments? Now we'll move on to call to the public, and I have one request from Noel Reck.
I'm Noel Reck from Casa Grande, and first I want to commend you on the community event in Coolidge. I look forward to more of the same in the future. Now for my concerns. What has happened to the GOP? Things started to bubble up with Newt Gingrich and his contract on America, and have reached the boiling point through 4 years of the Trump administration to where we are today at both the federal and state level. In Washington, we were treated to the spectacle that was the selection of the Speaker of the House, a complete waste of time and money, aided by the usual suspects in the Arizona contingent. McCarthy caved to the demands of the few, allowing House rules to be recklessly changed and seating some of the worst of the bunch on key committees. Now Republicans are starting their revenge tour, threatening to investigate everything under the sun and removing Democrats from committees without cause. Meanwhile, they refuse to address the problem of George Santos. They don't want to risk losing a seat after all, party over country. They don't care that they're wasting time and taxpayer money on legislation that will not get past the Senate or President Biden. For example, slashing IRS funding to stop the 87,000 IRS agents' boogeyman, forwarding anti-abortion measures, putting the global economy at risk with threats regarding the debt limit, blocking the sale of oil reserves to China, ignoring how the auction process works, ignoring that only 2% of oil going to China comes from the reserves, and it was the Republicans who lifted an export ban in 2015. Perhaps they need to put that ban in place again, despite pressure from the oil companies. Similarly, the Arizona Republican majority legislature doesn't seem to understand nothing will get done without working with the Democrats and Governor Hobbs. They've engaged in the same type of theater with the following proposals and actions: needless corporate tax cuts, no public notices in newspapers, no early voting and hand counts only, voucher expansion, anti-LGBTQ measures, making sleeping on the sidewalk illegal, banning roadside campaign signs, suing Governor Hobbs over her anti-discrimination executive order, threatening a state government shutdown, and of course, limiting/banning drag shows. One of the bills calls on you and the other boards of supervisors to set up some kind of zones where drag shows are or are not allowed. I call on this board to notify legislatures that you want no part of this foolishness, and it's time to stop the theater and get something done for the people. Going back to the drag shows, I would suggest if they're really so concerned about the innocence of children and protecting them from sexualization, they might ban Little Miss beauty pageants and place law enforcement at every movie theater to stop parents from allowing their children to view R-rated movies with them. That makes about as much sense. All of this in the face of real problems that must be addressed, such as water, housing, homelessness, immigration reform, education funding, and I-10, that $200 million giving non-bid to Trump-connected company in Florida for the shipping container stunt would be pretty handy right now. I urge you and the citizenry to contact these elected officials and say enough is enough with these antics. Get something done. Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak? Just approach the podium and tell us who you are and where you live.
Greetings. Chairman Surdy, Vice Chairman McClure, and members of the board. I am Tom Bean of Casa Grande. Not only have I been attending the board meetings for many years, I used to attend city council meetings, mainly Casa Grande, Coolidge, and Eloy. I remember when a new Casa Grande council member was sworn in by the name of Steve Miller. At numerous meetings, developers would come to Casa Grande and make their pitch for their developments and their housing problem. At the end of the presentations, I remember council member Miller would always ask, will there be low-income housing, affordable housing? And the answer was always no. Miller would ask, why not? And they would answer, it costs too much money. We can't afford it. Some of you may remember when Ahwatukee was told that they needed to include low-income housing. The developers fought, but they lost, and the homes were built. Affordable housing will attract a more diverse population and workforce. There will be fewer homelessness. Health of the individuals will improve. Shorter commutes will keep more money in the local economy. Less pollution, less traffic on the freeways. More tax dollars stay locally. Each dollar invested in affordable housing boosts the local coffers. Obviously, we need more affordable homes. A great way to meet these goals is the townhouse approach. More families come together and they carry their own mortgage. I call on this board to bring these agencies, think of all the agencies that could be involved in this. Habitat for Humanity, the Hispanic Council, Pinal County NAACP, all the veterans organizations could come together and help set up some way that we can convince these builders that they need to include in every development some homes that are affordable, that are low cost. It can be done, and I call upon Chairman Surdy to involve Member Miller and see if he can't chair and bring organizations. There are so many organizations, I could not list them all, that would be willing to meet and come up with proposals to give to developers. I do believe Pinal County can find room everywhere that will be affordable housing. I thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Okay, I don't see any. Supervisor Miller, you got mentioned. Did you want to say anything?
Well, I appreciate kind of the shout out, and yes, affordable housing has always been something that I tried to champion and push forward in this county and within the city of Casa Grande. I don't want to get too far out of bounds, but I actually did have a meeting with some governor's staff yesterday, and affordable housing came up. I shared some ideas. At some point, I'd like to share those ideas with a larger group at some point.
I got mentioned also, and the trend in the housing seems to be towards rentals now instead of selling. And I think their idea is that would be for low-income people, but it's sure nice to be able to own your own house, too, and that gives you a better goal to work towards instead of just paying rent forever. So moving on to item number 4, announcement of my appointment of Jaime Lanza to the Citizens Advisory Committee, and I do not believe he is here, so we will thank him for that. He's also going to be serving on another committee as well. Item number 5, discussion, approval, disapproval of proclaiming January as Human Trafficking Month. Denise Smith.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Obviously, I'm not Denise. My name is Delia Neal. I am the juvenile presiding judge for the Pinal County Superior Court. And I want to thank you very much for asking us or allowing us to come here and present the proposal for the proclamation. Normally, I'm on the other side of a bench, so forgive me if I'm a little nervous. I've never had to present anything to the board before, although I do spend my entire day talking. I would like to just, by way of introduction, I think the issue of human trafficking is not one that is unfamiliar to most of us in this room. We are aware that that is an issue. And in Pinal County, specifically our Pinal County Juvenile Court Services has a dedicated team that is set up to identify and provide services to the victims of our of human trafficking in our most vulnerable population, which is, of course, our children and the youth that come to juvenile court in Pinal County. We have an excellent team that does offer services to children who are victims of human trafficking, and we will work to continue to identify those individuals who are at risk for human trafficking or engaged in and vulnerable to this issue. I would ask that you allow us to read the proclamation to declare January 2023 Human Trafficking Prevention Month.
Do we have to vote on it first? So we would have to vote on that before we read it. So are there any questions or comments before we take a vote? Okay, so I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the proclamation of the month of January as Human Trafficking Awareness Month.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. It is now Human Trafficking Month, so now we can read it.
All right. Thank you very much. By the Pinal County Board of Supervisors, proclamation, Human Trafficking Prevention Month, January 2023. Whereas human trafficking is a form of slavery that can affect anyone and particularly victimizes vulnerable populations and negatively impacts our communities. And whereas human trafficking occurs when a person is recruited, harbored, transported, or obtained for the purpose of commercial sex, forced labor, involuntary servitude, debt bondage, or slavery through force, fraud, or coercion, or if the victim has not reached the age of 18. And whereas human trafficking denies freedom to 24.9 million people in the United States and around the world. And whereas women and girls are disproportionately affected by modern slavery, accounting for 28.7 million, or 71% of modern slavery victims. And whereas the International Labor Organization estimates that human trafficking is a $150 billion industry worldwide, and that $99 billion is generated from forced sexual exploitation. And whereas the Arizona Human Trafficking Council and the 2021 Youth Experiences Survey have found the average age of entry into sex trafficking for Arizona youth is 13 and 16 for labor trafficking. And whereas the 2021 Youth Experiences Survey found that 2 out of every 5 participants experienced at least one form of human exploitation. And whereas youth who have experienced sex trafficking are significantly more likely to have experienced a multitude of challenges, such as mental health struggles, substance use disorder, and significant trauma prior to having been trafficked. And whereas Arizona policymakers have worked diligently to combat human trafficking through the adoption of laws prohibiting and preventing human trafficking. And whereas the Governor's Arizona Human Trafficking Council has made significant strides in the areas of public awareness, victim services, data collection, and training in order to protect Arizona against this crime. And whereas Arizona is committed to ensuring it is a zero-tolerance state for any form of human exploitation. And whereas Arizona is committed to protecting victims' rights and restoring their freedom and dignity, now therefore the Pinal County Board of Supervisors do hereby proclaim January 2023 as Human Trafficking Prevention Month, proclaim this 25th day of January 2023. Thank you very much.
Fortunately, she didn't get out of line because I always wanted to gavel the judge. Item number 7, County Manager's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I am not wearing this because I'm not moonlighting for Home Depot. But it is a celebration of the grand opening of their facility in Santan Valley over on Hunt Highway. And I think they owned that property back in 2005, 2006 area. And I just wanted to reminisce a little bit because I think it might have been over 2 years ago. I remember when they were starting to relook at this site, we sat in Supervisor Goodman's conference room back when you were still over at Walker Butte area, if you remember. And Haley was there, Hamanchi was there, some of their brokers. And they sat down with us and said, we're relooking at this site. We want to get corporate approval, but we've got probably about 3 challenges that we would need to have met in order to make this an approved site. One of them was impact fees. And I remember that this board did update those impact fees and took care of that hurdle. Another was just the change in the layout of the site because of the way business had changed over those years. More online purchases, areas for drive-in and curbside pickup and lockers. And then also that the site had a few available pads, and they needed to maximize those pads and change the parking lot. So they did remark at their grand opening that this county, related to their challenges in permitting, is one of the, if not the best, that they've worked with in the country. And so thank you to all the staff that worked on that and helped make this a reality. And so we do have a video to show of that celebration. It was a great one. And I don't know if Supervisor Goodman or McClure, who were there, wanted to make any comments before we showed the video.
Bam, baby. Come on.
Yeah, bam, baby. You know, this has been, I think, I've been in office now for about 6 years, a little over 6 years, and one of the things that was a big concern for me was our economic development and the amount of retail leakage that we actually have out in Pinal County, particularly in the Santan Valley area. This is a big deal. It has been for some time, not to mention our roads and infrastructure, but I think our staff has done a tremendous job of providing things and a lot, making the pathway more open for businesses to come in this area. And so I think having this kind of an addition to a big box company like Home Depot is just going to bring more retail out this way.
Mr. Chair, this was also the first store that they've built since 2006 or 7 in the nation. And they're building, I think, 15 or 16 this year. This was one of them. So it's a really big deal.
Yeah.
And 95% of the people that work at this Home Depot live in Santan Valley. So that's
180, yeah, but 187 employees, and 95% of them are actually in the Santan Valley area. So that's big. It's a big deal. Oh, I forgot Leo. You're over in Gold Canyon, but whenever you...
So we wore our aprons that we got to wear the other night. So, you know, custom embroidered.
We're ready for the video.
Today was definitely the culmination of a lot of years of people wanting this store to be open. That's encouraging. You know, the only time we see a line like that is on a Black Friday. Every one of them saying, we are so excited that we don't have to drive 30 minutes in to Power Road Store and then 30 minutes back. So just the pent-up demand is like finally unleashed. So, and it's about 19 years in the making for this store.
I think they bought this property back in 2006. In 2008, the market, there was a big market crash on homes, and so it really took the back seat for Home Depot as far as expanding their stores, their marketplace.
People were asking me every day, when are you going to build a store in Santan? Well, now we have.
This has been a long time coming for the community. Many of us out here, we do some of our own home improvements. In fact, I'm just standing in front of this aisle right here, which is all the trim for your home. So if you're looking for any of those type of things, Home Depot has it. You don't have to travel all the way into Maricopa County to get that stuff. You're able to get it right here in Pinal County, right here in Santan Valley area.
We have tool rental. We have online orders, so people can go online, say, I want 6 air filters and a water tank, They'll come in Tuesday, and it's waiting at the service desk for them. We got 43,000 items on the shelves. We're in stock on everything, and we've got some great promos. We also have some discounts on installation of our services for carpeting and some countertops and other things of that nature. So it's not just tangible items. We do have some at-home services that we're promoting.
Roughly, there's over 180 employees that are working here. And so about 97%, I think is what he said, actually live in the Santan Valley area or Pinal County. So that's a big imprint for us moving forward of being able to provide jobs and opportunities right here in our local community.
We are excited to be out here in Santan Valley. You know, I grew up in Gilbert, Arizona when there was 3,000 people. When I drove out here for the first time after they told me I'm going to be the store manager, I was shocked at how many houses had built up and just growing.
Something of this nature has a big impact. And so there's going to be other stores coming that are going to be announcing here probably within this year of other locations of other major stores that's going to be coming out this way. So stay tuned.
That's all. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Purchasing Division report, Tiara or Angeline?
Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, and members of the board. I'm Tiara Peterson, Purchasing Manager for Pinal County, and this is your purchasing report for January 25th, 2023. First, the board is requested to approve the following contract amendments. ROQ 204426 for on-call construction management services. We recommend approval of amendment number 3 to exercise the optional extension period from March 28th, 2023 through March 27, 2024, with the following suppliers: ACOM Technical Services, Inc., Arcadis, Consultant Engineering, Inc., SOMAS, Strand Associates, Inc., and TriStar Engineering and Management, Inc. This contract is used by both the Facilities and Public Works Departments. ROQ 204526 for on-call engineering development plan review services. We recommend approval of amendment number 2 to exercise the optional extension period beginning March 28th, 2023 with the following suppliers: Intellis, Inc., LaChow Consulting, Inc., Michael Baker International, and SOMAS. This contract is used by the Community Development Department. ROQ 204626 for on-call environmental engineering services. We recommend approval of amendment number 2 to exercise the optional extension period from March 28th, 2023 through March 27th, 2024 with Hydro Geochem, Inc. and Westland Resources. This contract is also used by the Community Development Department. ROQ 205826 for on-call general airport services. We recommend approval of amendment number 2 to exercise the optional extension period beginning March 28th, 2023 with the following suppliers: Armstrong Consultants, Inc., Dibble and Associates Consulting Engineers, Strand Associates, Inc., and Trace Consulting, LLC. This contract is used by Public Works. And finally, the board is hereby notified of the following cooperative purchase made: PO 248856 with High Tech Network and Security Solutions, LLC, in the amount of $148,681.32 for network switches for internet speed and high-speed data transfer used by the IT department. And that concludes your Purchasing Division report for January 25th, 2023.
Any comments or questions? And I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we accept the Purchasing Division report as reported.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Item number 9, discussion update regarding the 2023 state and federal legislation session. Steve Miller, who is our liaison.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm going to just kind of give you a brief overview of what the committee you assigned me to with the CSA, which is the Legislative Policy Committee. I believe we have a handout. Do we have the handout that we can give each of the members? So every Friday, and the exception to the Friday is the week that we might have a board meeting at CSA, we'll do this legislative policy review of the legislation that's been introduced at the state capitol. The committee's charge is really to review items that affect counties and counties as a whole. We probably spend more time trying to block legislation that costs us money. That's the big thing that we look at, unfunded mandate type stuff. But we spend a good time discussing these bills and what effect they do have. And we came up with, and then at our legislative policy summit this last fall, I believe we had 4 items that we were going to champion and try and work on, which had to do with retirement funding and some different items there. We'll have legislation submitted at the state level by a representative, and we will monitor those as they go through the process. We basically have like 4 actions that we might take. We support, or we don't support it, or we're neutral. So there's oppose is the word. I'm sorry. We either support it, oppose it, or it's neutral. And sometimes there's no action on a particular bill if we're really searching out for more information from the person that submitted the bill. So that's what the Legislative Policy Committee does on a weekly basis during the session. It kind of ramps up, and I will tell you these meetings will get pretty lengthy here in another month. And then as the bills die or whatever, the meetings get a little bit slower. But with that all being said, again, you want to keep in mind, and I believe everybody's receiving this report from Penny Adams from CSA, so you can kind of see if there's anything there that you want to share with me. I don't know. I don't want to break open meeting laws, but if you want to get me questions somehow, some way, I'll try and answer them for you if there's more detail you'd like on any legislation. I do encourage all of you to sign in at the state legislature, create your account so you can support or oppose or neutral. And I think you'll see it in the bar that says to speak. But you don't have to speak. You can also do a written response. But for those bills that are critical to sometimes counties as a whole, or sometimes our county specifically, especially at the committee level, if we can either support or oppose on those committee members get that report in front of them as they're talking about that legislation. So it's important that we all participate, particularly if there's something that we really need to either push through or block. So I can do a little bit more coaching on that. I think if you go through these slides, it'll really kind of explain the process in more detail. But remember that the CSA Legislative Policy Group is really looking at counties as a whole, kind of the overall. Not so much on an individual basis, but for the political geeks like me that like to really watch that process and stay in tune with what's going on there, that's what we do on a weekly basis for CSA. And I'm your representative there. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
Steve, do you anticipate doing this report every week? But if it's slow and there's nothing pertaining to Pinal County, do you really need to do it?
If it's okay, I'll just kind of monitor that through Leo and Natasha, because there might be a week where there won't be much. But for now, we've just kind of said we'll put it on as a weekly report, or if we don't meet every week, it'll be the next meeting type of thing. But there'll be some things I want to go over with all of you in the future. So we'll want to bring this stuff before you and talk about it a little bit. so you have a better understanding what the legislation really is.
So we'll reserve a space on the agenda every week, but you talked about open meeting law. That could also be a time for us to ask as well.
Precisely, and that's why we want to put it on, so you can ask me questions about. And we do ask the CSA staff to go and get more information on a lot of these bills because they're not really clear as to really what it'll accomplish if it was to pass. So some of them may seem to take a while before we set a position on them, but I think if we can have it as an open discussion at these board meetings, I think that's a good thing for the county as a whole.
Anyone else?
Supervisor Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Supervisor Miller. For the benefit of the board and the public, the CSA and the Legislative Policy Committee sort of stay away from the issues that Noel Reck mentioned. This is roads, and can you just expand what's the absolute focus here?
You know, I would tell you they're more county specific and on county specific to our finances. I have to say that CSA is really good about monitoring, you know, the cost of governance to the taxpayers, and we try to, like I said, we try to block things that are unfunded mandates. We try and stay ahead of retirement programs and unfunded liability that we all have. So when there's legislation out there that we can help make inroads into those topics, that's what the policy committee is kind of focused on a real regular basis. We get involved. We might look at some transportation stuff. We might support something on transportation that would be a county or be a statewide type of operation. So, but there's a lot of stuff going on, and that's why I urge all of you to set up an account, because there may be a bill out there that you do want to weigh in on, support or oppose. That's not really generic, maybe to the counties as a whole, but maybe something that you're championing yourself for your own district. That's a little bit different deal. We won't see that at CSA, but you're all encouraged to participate. That at the committee level, the legislators do look at who's supporting and who's opposing, and I try to go up and testify. I testified yesterday on language that will change the authority for counties to participate in sewer programs, sewer funding. I got a unanimous vote out of the committee, but it's still got a long ways to go, and there could be modifications to it, but it had a lot of support, and the committee felt comfortable, passing it. If I can share a little levity with all of you, I think Mark Barnes made an analogy one time about the state legislature and how these bills modify. I mean, it's unbelievable how they change within the next 3 months, how they may end up actually passing and what they do. But he says you could walk into that building with a thoroughbred racehorse, and after the legislature gets done with it, it'll come out a 3-hump camel. So anyway, because there's a lot of debate, which is good. I mean, I encourage the debate and I encourage the input by everybody, but we just have to monitor, and that's what I'm charged with. I think for this for the county, for the Board of Supervisors in Pinal County, and I'll keep you abreast of what's going on at the legislature.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have the consent agenda. Would anyone like to pull anything? I am going to be pulling item number D. Looks like no. Natasha, no others? So can I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve items A through AA minus D as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes. And we just go right into D, right? We don't need a motion to talk about D. So item number D is in my district, and that is I had a planning and zoning opening, and we kind of put the word out looking for, qualified individuals. And we got Wallace Keller, who is a lifetime of working in the cement industry, so he knows plans and blueprints, and I think he's going to be a ideal fit. So if we approve him, then I think we have a certificate to give him. So I'll ask for a motion on approving item number D.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item D as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So item D, and so come down and
Is he here?
If he's here, easier.
Wake up the photographer. Need a couch in there.
And there we go. 3, 2, 1. One more. Nice. Thank you.
so we will adjourn this meeting and go into the flood control director's meeting. Recess, yes. No gavel. So recess this meeting, flood control, which I have a sheet here somewhere for that. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda for flood control?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent items A through E on the Flood Control District Board meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, flood control is in the books. We'll recess that and go into public health services. Do we have a motion on that consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent items A through D for the Public Health Services District.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And we have approved those items. So that recess is over, and we're back to our regular meeting, which is number 13, hearing review and action on appeal of a hearing officer's decision for ZO-08-18-015. Chris Keller.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Scott Johnson, County Attorney's Office.
Before we get started, if we can just get Chris to make this announcement.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. As normal in these public hearings before you regarding zoning and case matters of this type on hearing decisions, I recuse myself, and you usually have Andy McGuire or somebody else online to ask. I don't know if we have Andy online at this point in time.
Joe Estes is on the line.
Joe Estes. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if the board is aware, but we did, both parties, the county and the Islamic Cultural Center, did provide a motion to continue this appeal. Both parties are engaging with each other right now as part of their rezone, and the county has asked the Islamic Cultural Center to provide as part that came out of the hearing office. This board has not yet heard that appeal because we're trying to resolve this rezone, which would resolve any potential code issues and resolve any potential litigation in the future. I outlined that in the motion. Both parties did sign it. Omar Abdullah, the representative for the Islamic Cultural Center, is available if you have questions for him. And we also have Evan Evangelopoulos from the planning department who actually met with the Islamic Cultural Center to give you any updates if you need any updates from him on what that interaction was. But as we sit right now, they have engaged with the county. They've continued to engage with the county. And part of the delay and the reason this has taken so long has been on the county's occasion just because of staffing issues and things like that. So we have discussed this. We both agree that a continuance would be appropriate. It's up to the board on how you would like to handle that. But we did file a motion requesting the 6-month continuance, and we did provide you guys an order so that you can put in a date if you do want to reset this hearing.
Before we would vote on a continuance, are there any questions or comments? Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for some background, I kind of remember this. I think I remember this project or this because it was issued under a temporary use, and it's a cemetery.
That is correct.
And that's not really a good zoning category for a cemetery.
That is correct. And being under a temporary use permit
isn't
a good thing. And so there was a drawn-out process before it got to the hearing to try to get everybody on the same page, and it just never happened.
Okay.
And so the hearing kind of got us to where we're at now, which is in a pretty good place as far as their rezoning and their rezone application and the requirements that the county is requesting of them that they've graciously agreed to complete. So
yeah, well, and I'm happy to hear that, and I would support the continuance. And so if the chairman would like a motion, I'll be glad to give it at some point.
And Mr. Chair, there was just another thing. It was access to this property as well, was it not?
yes, there was gate access issues, which we are asking them to address as part of this, the new updates on their application. There were some parking issues that we're having them address with straight-in parking and angled parking. And they are, like I said, they have agreed to address all those issues. We're asking them to do a parking study over the next few months, too, to try to get an idea of how many vehicles will be coming in and out of that location. And as a result, like I said, it's going to add time to that application process. And we're hoping that it'll just resolve and go away, and they get their zoning, and everybody's happy. And again, we haven't been receiving any complaints from neighbors or anything like that in the meantime. So.
Okay. If no more comments, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to, I believe this is affirm the decision of the hearing offer for a continuance.
Continue of the appeal.
Continue the appeal.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
I'm sorry, if we can clarify that we're going to continue to the first regular scheduled meeting in the month of August.
Okay. Continue the appeal, the action of the appeal till the first meeting in August. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that I could second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that carries.
Thank you.
Item number 14, public hearing discussion disapproval of number 012523-AQ. And that resolution, Scott DiBiase can tell us about that.
We have the presentation.
I see it here now.
Yes.
Chairman, supervisors, just waiting for the presentation to come up.
Okay.
I got a brief presentation, only take a few minutes. Down at the bottom. Maybe we continue with, okay. All right, thank you for the time this morning. My name is Scott DeBias. I'm with Pinal County Air Quality, and I'm here for the public hearing for the West Pinal Sirius PM10 non-attainment area rulemaking. There we go.
Would you just please state PM10? I know
PM10.
But it is, what does that mean, PM?
Particulate matter 10 microns or less.
Thank you.
It's a criteria air pollutant. So this map shows the West Pinal PM10 non-attainment area within the county. The red dots show the monitoring locations within the non-attainment area. So why is the rulemaking necessary? Originally, the area was designated a moderate non-attainment area in 2012, ADEQ put together a state implementation plan at the time. The Pinal County Board of Supervisors adopted some reasonably available control measures that were adopted in 2015. The attainment year was 2018. We've had ongoing PM10 exceedances through last year, so EPA redesignated the area to a serious PM10 non-attainment area. Maricopa Association of Governments is the current lead planning agency for the area, and they developed a SIP, State Implementation Plan, which included a board-adopted commitment to do this rulemaking. It also includes an attainment year extension request out to 2026. A couple Clean Air Act requirements associated with those is the best available control measures for fugitive dust sources is required to be implemented within 4 years of the area getting redesignated to serious non-attainment. And also most stringent measures need to be in place, and those are the most stringent measures that are in place in any serious PM10 non-attainment area or any area within the country. And the rules that are in the resolution before you today check the boxes for both best available control measures and the most stringent measures. The rulemaking timeline started in early November with a public notice. The stakeholder meeting took place on December 6th. We had 8 participants. The oral proceeding and close of public comment period occurred on December 13th. 2 sets of written comments were submitted by EPA and Waste Management. The item of note in regards to EPA's comments, there were some approvability issues with the initial rulemaking proposal as it related to control officer discretion language. So some minor revisions were made to the rulemaking proposal that's before you today. The detailed description of what was changed is in the concise explanatory statement in your agenda packet. There's the public hearing that goes on today, and then hopefully the board adopts those rules, and we ask EPA to include those in the Arizona State Implementation Plan. General highlights. 2 sets of rules are being proposed in today's resolution. First and foremost, West Pinal construction fugitive dust rules. There's those best available control measures and most stringent measure requirements, so the more stringent requirements that include daily record-keeping requirements for construction sites in the non-attainment area, basic and comprehensive dust control training requirements, and a dust control coordinators required on construction sites in the non-attainment area of 5 or more acres of disturbance. In regards to the general fugitive dust rules, this covers vehicle use in open areas and vacant lots, open areas and vacant lots, unpaved parking lots, mechanized weed abatement and or trash removal, unpaved roads, paved roads. So there's visible emissions and stabilization requirements and control measures for those first 4. In regards to unpaved roads, there's a 26 or more average daily traffic threshold that has visible emissions and stabilization standards associated with it. There's also an annual road paving requirement with that same ADT threshold. So each city, county, or state agency within the West Pinal PM10 non-attainment area, starting in 2024, has to pave annually an average of 20%, up to a maximum of 5 miles within their respective unpaved roads. There's also a contingency measure that's required as part of the Clean Air Act. And that only goes into effect if EPA determines that the area hasn't attained the standard or reached its emission reduction goals. And what this is tied into is Arizona Revised Statutes 28703C. There's a speed limit of 15 miles per hour on public unpaved roads.
Can you take questions during your
Absolutely.
presentations?
Absolutely.
Mr. Miller has one.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just real quick, the 26 ATT, isn't that a reduced number from what it used to be? Can
Yes.
you remind me what the number used to be?
Right. The currently adopted rules that were adopted by the board in 2015 are 150 ADT.
So we went from 150 ADT now down to 26.
Correct.
That now makes that road eligible or out of compliance, I guess, or however you want to look at it.
Yeah, it puts the visible emissions and stabilization standards.
It puts, the stabilization requirement on that right-of-way then.
Correct.
That's a big change.
It is.
I mean, it's not like you cut off 20 or you cut off 30.
Yeah, the process.
It's down to 85% from what it used to be.
The process for determining best available control measures and most stringent measures went out and looked, MAG hired a consultant that went out and looked at all the different serious PM10 non-attainment areas, and that 26 ADT threshold is in rule somewhere else.
Okay. Mr. Chair, may I?
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Tobias, because of the non-attainment area here, that we've dropped so much in average daily travelers. I mean, that's our dirt roads, and that's because this started quite a ways back, and EPA said you've got to do this containment. Oh, it didn't happen. Well, we've put it out a few more years. That didn't happen, so now we're going to make the rules more stringent. And oh, it didn't happen again, so now it's even tighter. Is that correct?
Correct. We have to have the most stringent measures in place in any area of the country, unfortunately, at this point in time.
To Steve.
And just one other thing, and this is just for the audience's understanding. Days of not being in compliance is like, isn't it like you can't have more than 3?
Yes.
You can't have more than 3 days that you exceed the limits. And I mean, there's just no way Arizona, particularly central Arizona down here, will ever be able to.
That's correct, Supervisor Miller. It's a 3-year period. You can't have more than 1 exceedance set on any monitor. More than 3 exceedances in a 3-year period. That's correct.
Yeah, there we go. That's how it read. Thank you.
I think dust is Casa Grande's #1 export.
It's just
from the dust
well,
storms.
Well, well said.
Okay, so I was going to have some questions at the end, but since we're doing them now, so this is mostly dust. I think it started out being pollutants, which is good. Nobody wants to be polluted, but it is dust. So your department, is there a way that citizens can report? Because not only is it roads, but it's like construction projects. And I think a lot of them, they're supposed to get a dust permit, but sometimes they just think they can get it done and they're in and out in a couple days. Is there a way for citizens to report and then to follow up that if something's happened and they're in and out, is there any repercussions to come back to, talk to anybody?
Yes, Chairman Surdy. We do have an online complaint form people can fill out. We send an inspector out to do an inspection, make sure that they're abiding by the rules. They can also call in complaints. We've been in, the department's been in existence for many, many years. We are responsive to complaints, and we do hold our regulated community to the rules that are on the books. So, yes, we do address those, and those are the avenues that the citizenry can put their complaints in.
And right now with the periodic rain that we're having, we're not really seeing a lot because, for instance, on my way down here, I come down 79 and there's the new landfill that sometimes in the morning it just makes a cloud that comes all the way over to Florence. So
yes, sir.
In the future, they need to just get water trucks and be watering their roads in order to control this, correct?
Correct. And they can use dust palletives, they can use gravel, anything that can reduce the dust. So those are included in the rules as well, Chairman Surdy.
So I think if no one knows, for those listening, just contact our offices and we can pass on concerns to this department.
Yes, sir. That's what we're here for, Chairman Surdy.
Thank you. Back to your presentation, unless you were done.
Just continuing on under the general fugitive dust rules. So with the new proposed rules that are in the resolution before you, there's track-out control requirements. There's certified street sweepers requirements starting in 2025 within the non-attainment area. And there's also shoulder and median stabilization standards. And generally, overall, the general fugitive dust rules, there's record-keeping and reporting requirements as well, which is in line with the current rules that we have right now. Each entity is supposed to report annually the miles of unpaved roads that they have and the miles of unpaved roads that they've paved in the past year. And that's our way of tracking progress. And with that, this is my last slide. The resolution before you today adopts the West Pinal best available control measures, most stringent measures, fugitive dust rules, and directs our Department of Air Quality to request that ADEQ submit the rules to EPA for inclusion in the state implementation plan. And that concludes my presentation. Unless you have any other questions, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Are there any more before we go to the public hearing? Okay, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to weigh in on this from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any last discussion among us? Then I will ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 14 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And that one carries.
Thank you so much.
Item number 15 is a couple long numbers, which I'm not going to read, but it is approval, disapproval of the 2 resolutions regarding several different LLCs. And Sangita.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, Vice Chair and board members. I will be presenting two cases. This is part of Sunzia, a transmission project, and there are two applications which refer to the first one as a change in land use, and the second one is a pad overlay for the same one. The first project is, there are multiple owners, Whale Click LLC, Farm Morel LLC, Piemontes Direct LLC, Benfado LLC, who are the landowners, and Pew and Lake PLC. Ralph Pew is the agent requesting a non-major comprehensive plan amendment to redesignate 80 acres from moderate low-density residential land use to general public facilities and services. The second application is the same area with the same owners requesting approval of a planned area development overlay on the same acreage in the general rural zoning district and modify the development standards for the same area. The location is located east of Sunshine Boulevard and north of Early Road in central Coolidge area. And the agent, as mentioned earlier, is Pew and Lake PLC. Ralph Pew, who's the agent, is present today. This is the county map showing the location of this project, and this is a Sunzia converter station, utility station. And one can see it is in central Coolidge, central Pinal area, and it's part of unincorporated Pinal County. The vicinity map showing the location of this project, further zooming into this, showing the land use, which has a state land abutting to the south. We have GR zoning to the north and east, and we have MH zoning to the west of this project area shown in red. And one can also see that it is surrounded by incorporated areas of Eloy to this further down southwest and southeast is Coolidge. Aerial map showing the subject site, and one can see it is largely undeveloped right now. The comprehensive plan currently showing moderate low density residential, which is 1 to 3.5 dwelling units per acre. And the proposed land use is general public facilities and services. The comprehensive plan, one can see the exhibits showing the site. This site, as is shown, is covering 160 acres. However, only a portion towards the west side of this site, which is 80 acres, is requested for this proposed change in land use to from moderate low density residential to general public facilities services. This is the, again, further zooming into the zoning, current zoning showing GR, and this portion is showing the 80 acres of the larger piece of this parcel, which is 80 acres in this. And as shown earlier, it was 160 acres, which is this area. The project overview from the land use perspective, this project purpose is to transport 4,500 megawatts of renewable energy from New Mexico to markets in Arizona and California. Proposed converter station in Arizona is the western counterpart, similar to the converter station in New Mexico. The proposed location is along the existing and planned electrical infrastructure. It's part of a larger utility hub area or a zone, I would say, at a regional level. Existing zoning is general rural. There is no zone change that is proposed as utilities are allowed in the general rural zone. 80 acres are proposed, which is a portion of the parcel. The PAD proposed changes only to a height in the development standards. All other standards remain same for the general rural zoning district as stated in the staff report. Site plan adheres to all requirements, including ADA parking, emergency vehicle access, grading, drainage, retention areas, as per Pinal County Development Services Code. There's minimum traffic expected, and therefore there's also no pedestrian access to this parcel and the project. This area, or this, I would say, exhibit shows the site context with infrastructure showing the location of this project, the converter station, showing in the red marked area. One can see the dotted lines, which are the transmission lines, which have been already approved by the Arizona Corporation Commission. The inset of this exhibit shows the project, the SunZia, this converter station as part of a larger project of the SunZia transmission. One can see that the New Mexico, east side converter station is located in the blue area that is shown, and what we are proposing is the SunZia West converter station in the location in Arizona. This map also shows the SRP Pinal substation to the north, west of this, and it's part of the larger, as I said, infrastructure and hub of this whole electrical layout and utility zone. This is the site plan overall, giving an overview of the access from the south, which is shown with from the early road, and emergency vehicle access also is an additional access. There are more details that would be expected. However, at a planning stage at this point, fundamental things like emergency vehicle access, ADA parking, circulation have been taken care of, and more details would be analyzed and looked into at a site plan when they come in for the site plan approval stage. Some pictures taken along north, south into the area. This is along east, and the parcel is towards the right side, and the west. Some items for board's consideration. There's no change in the zoning. It remains the same. It's general rural. As mentioned earlier, utility scale projects are allowed in GR zone. Pad development standards remain the same, except the height, which is requesting higher height for the converter station. We received no responses. There are no public responses in opposition for this project. And Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval on both the cases. The first one had no stipulations, which is the land use change, PZPA 01422. And the second one, which is the pad overlay, was approved with 20 stipulations. Just today morning, we received some legal advice on change in the noise stipulation, with the 20th stipulation. And I would request Natasha to pull up the screen on that. Is it there? Okay. Is it on the screen? It's not? Okay. So there is a change in the 20th stipulation. I would like to read into the record for the board. Applicant to follow noise control ordinance per ADEQ guidelines, applicant shall not create a sound level in excess of its ambient sound pressure level, LEQ, limit as provided in Pinal County zoning ordinance. For general rural zoning, LEQ levels may not exceed 65 dBA from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. and 60 dBA from 9 p.m. to 7 p.m. a.m. At the property line. Sound levels shall be locally measurable and applied by the use of LEQ levels as defined in the section 10 to 22 and measured in accordance with the methods set forth in Section 10 to 23 of the Pinal County Zoning Ordinance for the purposes of evaluating an alleged violation.
Just to clarify, that was the old language. This is the new.
Okay. I'm sorry, this was the older stipulation, number 20, which I read into record, and the updated stipulation is as follows. Applicant to follow noise control ordinance per ADEQ guidelines, applicant shall not create a sound level in excess of its ambient sound pressure level, LEQ limit as provided in the Pinal County zoning ordinance. Sound levels shall be locally measurable and applied by the use of LEQ levels as defined in Section 10 to 23 of Pinal County zoning ordinance for purposes of evaluating an alleged violation. I'm sorry for this last minute change. However, we had to read this into the record for the board's consideration.
Mr. Chair, may I just ask you a question? Ms. Dokar, you said that there were no disapprovals or nobody had any negative comments on this. What is the distance that you're required to mail out to from a project like this?
So at a neighborhood meeting level, it's 1,200 feet by the applicant, and the county sends out postcards prior to this at 600 feet.
So from this location, judging by the map, I mean, 600 feet there's nobody there. So the plants that are out there wouldn't write you a letter.
So we followed what the...
I understand. I'm just saying, but so to not get any disapprovals is kind of, no big deal because there's nobody in that range around there.
I agree with you. However, the neighborhood meeting also was conducted by the applicant, and we do have the neighborhood meeting, I would say, report that is much more than what we have sent also, which had not much of responses.
Thank you.
Is that everything on?
Yes. We also have a presentation by the applicant if you would like to before you make your decisions or approval or disapproval of the project.
Do you think it important that we see it?
I think so.
Okay, so we will see that. And we're doing 15 and 16 together, and then we'll do the public hearing on both of those together as well.
This one, just go down. Okay. So, should I close it? Just a moment. Just help you with first putting it up. Yeah, and just scroll it. I'll help you.
That should scroll it down.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Board of Supervisors, thank you very much for the opportunity to be with you. My name is Ralph Pugh. My office is in Mesa. I'm here this morning on behalf of Pattern Energy and the SunZia Transmission Project. We really don't want to take too much of your time. Sangeeta has covered the issues very well on this case. We also have with us here, let me introduce to you Natalie McHugh and also Kevin Wetzel, who are senior development team members from Pattern on this SunZia transmission project. So if there are questions that I'm not aware of, we've got two experts here that can handle that. So in a nutshell, members of the supervisors, this is an issue of taking 80 acres of land that is currently zoned general rural and is located right in the path of the approved Certificate of Environmental Compatibility and line siting approvals from the Arizona Corporation Commission, and requesting a non-major comp plan amendment to change that to the general public facilities district. Then within that 80 acres, which Sangeeta showed you just a minute ago, is about a 10 to an 11 acre site where the converter station will actually exist. So this is known as a private utility facility, right? And consequently, it is an allowed use, permitted use in the general rural zoning district. So the reason we're here in front of you today is to seek a PAD overlay on that general rural district for the sole purpose of allowing 80 feet in height in the valve halls and 40 feet of height in the 2 service buildings. So that's really the point of being here, and I just want to show you an exhibit here that really points this out. This is a real good exhibit to illustrate what we're talking about. So Pinal Central Substation by Salt River Project is to the left on that screen, to the west, where the transmission lines go west and then they go north a little bit. That's Pinal Central. So come to the east now, about a half a mile, and that's the project we're talking about. So where it's outlined in blue and the green lines are coming in, and there's a red box in the middle, that's where the converter station will be. So that blue now would indicate a change in the comp plan to the general facilities and services uses. And then the zoning stays the same. Now, I'm going to show you in just a second those valve towers and why the height is important. But this is really right in the heart of the corridor where it should be. And it's right between Pinal Central and what you see on the pink. On the right-hand side, all that pink is your comprehensive plan designation for employment uses. So that's where you want to see over time the evolution of employment there. And so, in our opinion, this is the not only logistically and mathematically and engineering-wise the perfect spot, but it also is in the heart of your comprehensive plan expectations. I'll show you one thing about the valve hall, but before I forget, Supervisor McClure, very good question about notifying people. So we realized the very question you raised, and for our informational meeting, we sent notice out to all the folks that are in the mobile home park and subdivision southwest of the project and to the folks to the northeast of the project. So we knew there were a lot of shrubs out there that would not respond. Okay, so that's where those are located. Let's see if I can. So this is the converter station. When there is, in many people's opinion, a difference between a substation, which takes voltage that comes in and out of that station, normally in AC form, and moves it up or down depending on what the needs of the area are. We think of those as substations. This is a converter station. Why? Because in New Mexico, where the wind-driven powered generators occur, all the source of generating power is occurring in New Mexico. Right there on the site, they convert what comes out of the power, out of the wind turbines, AC, into DC energy, right there. Then it's transported 550 miles, roughly, to this site. Why? Because the dissipation of power and efficiency and all that through DC is much better. So it comes here. Now we've got to back it into, again, Pinal Central with AC. So that's the sole purpose of this facility, is to accept that power coming in the transmission lines that are already approved location-wise by the Corporation Commission, convert it to AC, and then move it about another half a mile to the west into Pinal Central. That's what occurs here. So those are the valve halls you can see that need to be 80 feet, and the service buildings 40. So here's the reason for the height change, is because there are mechanisms somewhat similar to this that will find themselves housed in the valve hall. And the valve hall inside looks like this. This is a little too sensitive here. Where are we? There. Perfect. So that is the valve hall. And please don't ask me to explain any of the engineering concepts, but it is necessary to have that additional height in the general rural district so that those mechanisms can remain suspended and function in a clean, non-corrosive environment, and there can be clearance underneath it for equipment and those who are there from time to time to manage and repair. So that is the converter station in a nutshell.
Can people buy those at our new Home Depot?
Yes, I was thinking about that, Chairman Surdy. There is a department there. We may be able to find something similar. Yeah, this is over the top sophisticated, so I'm not going to bore you with any of my lack of knowledge of it. So I was just going to come to one other point here. We've already explained that. Where did I find it? Here we have a couple of really good simulations, and then I'll leave you alone, Supervisor. So we looked at the site and thought, okay, here's where it's going to be, outlined in white with the slash marks, a little slightly over-exaggerated for size. So we went over to where our nearest neighbor to the southwest is, and did a simulation from that point, and then we went over to another half a mile or so east on Early and took a shot coming back west. So here it is. Let's see. Why can't this? There we go. There. So now if you're west of the project and you're looking to the northeast, the top photo it looks like what it appears today if you looked in that direction. The power lines are there, and that vegetation is there. So once the project's built, the character of this area, which is designated as the corridor for this use, frankly, will look like what you see in the bottom photograph. Those will be some of the transmission line poles and sustainability sections, along with the valve halls that you see there. So that'll give you a little bit of a perspective of what that would look like. And then as we come down here, we'll take a look at the other one. So this now is looking, you're east of the project and you're looking back west toward Pinal Central Station. So that's what those valve towers would look like and how it would fit in with already the power lines that are coming through in that area. So the other question is, who are the potential customers? I mean, really, we're talking about a height increase in the general rural district. The other important thing to note, in the general rural district, this private utility facility is a permitted use. So the drafters of the code set the height in the rural district at probably 30 or 40 feet, probably 30 is my guess, typically expecting what would be there. But it also provided for this permitted use, which would naturally have to have a PAD for the height increase. So that's why we're here today. Who are the potential customers? Just an interesting fact here. So this power is going to be put into Pinal Central, and obviously those who are partners in the Pinal Central, both Salt River Project, Tucson Electric, Western Area, Arizona Electric, the 3 local electrical districts, industrial and commercial consumers typically, will be partners and potential customers. So Mr. Chairman and members of the supervisors, you've been very patient listening to this. We think it's a wonderful thing. It's the culmination point, frankly, because all of the other necessary permitting, both federal and state, have been approved and accomplished. This is kind of the last step in the process to have the PAD amended and allow the height of these buildings in this comprehensive plan area. So with that, I'll be quiet and answer questions. We urge your vote of approval, members of the supervisors.
Any questions or comments? Okay, this is a public hearing on 15 and 16. I do have one request, and we'll look at others. And the first name's throwing me for a loop. Is it Dosky Edwards? Need to know your basic area that you live in.
I live at 1190 South La Palma Road, to the northeast of where this is going to be. Okay, so I wrote a letter, so I'm going to read my letter. All right. No one wants to live next to a power plant that kills future development and resale value. There are plenty of people who are tired of overgrown cities that are moving to rural areas. This is basically the Green New Deal that no one wanted, and you're forcing us to accept. So many people have let their city officials know that they don't like the solar and stuff like that. One of the best parts of my day is looking at all God's glory in the sunset. I have the most gorgeous views, and your building will be exactly in that way, blocking it. I've taken various pictures where I will not be able to see it anymore, and neither will others. So then I asked, like, why it can't be moved to a different location if it's on 160 acres. Like, why does it have to be right there? And the sound frequency, and they're not going to know about it until they actually build the building, which is funny to me. And like how that affects your horses or like animals that are like close to it, because I have 8 of them. And yeah, so that is what I wanted to say on the matter. Thank you.
Natasha, she asked some questions. Should I give the presenter opportunity to possibly explain now or go on to another one?
Yes, the presenter can respond.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the supervisors, again, our thought about those comments, while they are genuine and sincere and legitimate for those who live right there, I think the point is that this is the area that has been designated for years as this corridor for these types of uses. And in order to have this power come into our county here, it takes a converter station. So, and over time, frankly, to the east of where the lady that just spoke lives, there will ultimately be employment development there too that we don't envision today and don't know what it'll be. So where she lives today will ultimately have non-residential uses around it, and this one, in our opinion, is relatively harmless as it relates to its impact on the neighbors. So that's our thought on this, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public hearing is still open. Would anyone else like to speak on this? Mr. Chairman.
In the very back.
You want to wait till they're all done? We'll come back. Yes. Yes.
Good morning. I'm Courtney Ramirez, and I live right here in Pinal County. I don't live in that general vicinity, but I am strongly opposed to a lot of this green energy stuff that's been trying to invade our beautiful area. But yet I think it's really important to ask, is that the highest and best use for that type of property? A lot of us locals that are around here, how much say did we have about what really went into the general plan and all that green energy that's trying to come in this area? And she has a point. There's a lot of power that's going to be generated there. How safe is that really for humans and the animals that are in the area? And I wanted to go back also. Who makes the rules of the distance of people that get notified with these community meetings and the letters that go out? Is that something that the board does? Is that in the policy? Or because quite frankly, projects like that are in these more rural areas do really affect the whole entire communities as a whole. And so for the people within 600 feet or even 1,200 feet, there's more of us that are concerned with what's happening in the bigger backyard of where we live. And so I oppose this. It's not going to bring many jobs. The dangers of it, you guys are having a hard time even keeping the dust control down and the clean air around the county. Do these generating systems contribute to the dirty air? Research is finding that the solar panels are. So, just something to think of. We want jobs and something better than solar and green energy, ugly distribution stations or whatever they're calling this thing. So that's what I had to say about it. Thank you.
Chris Keller, can you answer the procedure?
Regarding procedure, I don't know if Brent's here or someone from Planning and Development. Alan may be able to go ahead and respond to some of that. And I refer that you're requesting on the notification component of that, the 600 feet, is it, Alan?
Yeah, the notice requirements are based in the county's code, Chairman, and that is something that the Board of Supervisors can look at and adjust via code ordinance amendment. So,
Do we know when that was set? Oh, that's a good question. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Al.
More answers.
I actually have a question back
okay.
to staff, if you don't mind. What was the date on that that ordinance being set with the notification limits? I mean, was it 1998? Was it 2000? Was it when was that ordinance established? Can anybody tell me that? Has it been in place for 50 years?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, I am not sure what date is tied to those specific.
We can find that out. But my point is, I don't think there's been a change in that probably for a long, long time. And maybe at some point we'll be able to establish when those limitations were set into the code, and we'll examine that for the future.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. In the new code revisions, is it probably still the same?
There are some drafts that are being worked on, and I believe currently it is the same.
And we're waiting for our code revisions to come through planning and zoning.
That's correct.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Did you have answers?
Mr. Chairman, yes, if I could respond to the questions that were raised. See if I can get this to go backwards a little bit, and I'll show you the map. There, hold on. I kind of get the right page. There, one more. Okay, I quit. I'm trying to get it to go back near the front. Okay, you're good. Just keep going back. You're doing good. Hold, not quite that fast. A little bit more. Keep going. There. That's good right there. So this exhibit, members of the Board of Supervisors, will illustrate again the notice that we provided for people to come to the neighborhood meeting went clear to the west side of the mobile homes and RV parks that you see there in the lower left-hand corner, which is over a half a mile, probably closer to 3/4 of a mile. We were not required to do that, but we expanded it to those folks because we knew they were there. That was the right thing to do. And the same thing, people were notified on the north. So the folks that live in that area or own property in that area were properly notified. It's never our intent not to notify people. But with respect to the comments from the lady that just spoke, first of all, just want to be clear again, we are not generating any electrical power here. This is not a generating plant. The power here in this case, unlike other sources of energy, this is generated in the state of New Mexico with huge acreages of windmills and wind-driven turbines. That's where all of the action takes place. Simply what we're doing here is bringing, the power lines are already approved to come into this location to get to Pinal Central. They just need a place to stop and convert the DC to AC. That's all it does. There's nothing more to it than that. And frankly, the noise stipulation number 20 that you heard today, we agree to that stipulation. We don't have any problem complying with county ordinances on noise. So we believe we're presenting a project that complies with all the standards and requirements. Now, with respect to dust control, the operational facility is all going to have, the roads will be paved, the access to it. So it's not going to be a dust issue. There's not going to be people driving on dusty roads. They're going to drive on improved streets. And so we do our part there, too, to make the improvements we're required under the code. So hopefully that answers some of those fundamental questions of what we're doing here and why this converter station is so critically important to the power in this area. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Public hearing is still open. Would anyone else like to comment? Hearing and seeing none, I will close the public hearing and take any questions or comments from the supervisors.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Pugh, we talked about noise. What is the source of noise on this? Would it be cooling fans?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Kavanaugh, let me ask Kevin Wetzel if he can to answer that with respect to noise.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. Kevin Wetzel, Senior Director of Business Development for Pattern Energy. We're headquartered in both Houston and San Francisco. The noise is primarily from HVAC units to control temperature, but also just there's kind of a, call it a dull hum that comes from these types of electrical substations that are present in all kind of transmission level, substations. That really just comes from the electrical infrastructure that does the conversion from DC to AC. So it's really those two elements that create any noise.
And we talked about the building height. Is this something where there's no possibility of lowering it into the ground?
No, not feasibly. We did look at that, and both from a cost and safety perspective, this is very specified technology. It's not first of its kind, but it is fairly rare in the industry, and so to ensure the safety and the operation, they designed the spec to the.
You wouldn't want the water to.
For example.
And then I don't know if it'd be a question for you, and or perhaps Supervisor Miller might be an expert in this area, but. Isn't it true that the Arizona Corporation Commission sets the standards for green energy production that we have to hit? I saw some things on their website, but it's from a board perspective, we don't set the. I mean, I'd rather see 3 new nuclear power generating stations, but.
Do you want me to respond? What I know?
Yeah.
and thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Corporation Commission is the one that's establishing percentages that generating state, like an APS or an SRP, they're setting those standards as to how much of their production will have to be green energy by a certain date. So that's been where a lot of this has been generated from, is the Corporation Commission and the demands that the state is putting on the production of electricity in Arizona.
So people should pay attention to who is voted onto that board to make sure their values align with.
Yes,
their own.
I agree. Can I ask just a quick question?
If I could clarify that issue too on cleanliness that the lady just spoke about, and dust and particulates. The way I would describe it, this is my version of an industrial clean room. The last people that want dust and particulates and problems and corrosion is Pattern Energy and the SunZia transmission team. This is clean. That room has to be clean. The area around it has to be paved. We can't tolerate those problems inside on that equipment. So this is not a generator of dust or particulates or corrosion. Okay.
You had a question, Steve?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Then, so what we have is an enclosed operation, and which will have some noise attenuation to it at some level. I don't know. And when it referenced the noise, isn't that measured at the property line? Those parameters will have to be met, whatever it takes. Am I correct?
That's correct, Supervisor Miller, and that's contractual. We hold our contractors, liable and
exactly.
contractually bound to meet those requirements.
So, okay, thank you.
Any more questions or comments? All right, I will ask for a motion. I did close the public hearing already. I'll ask a motion on item 15. They're separate motions.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 15.
I'll second that.
Presented with no stipulations.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor?
If we can just state for the record with no stipulations on that particular item.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve item 15 as presented with no stipulations.
Second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Item number 16, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve item number 16 with 20 stipulations, 20 being changed to applicant to follow noise control ordinance per ADEQ guidelines. Applicant shall not create a sound level in excess of its ambient sound pressure level, LEQ limit, as provided in Pinal County zoning ordinance, and sound levels shall be locally measurably and applied by the use of LEQ levels as defined in section 10-23 of the Pinal County zoning ordinances for purposes of evaluating an alleged violation.
Second.
And there's a second. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? And that is unanimous. Thank you. Item number 17 is another public hearing for Nevitt Farms. And this will be Sangeeta as well.
Yes. Thank you once again, Sangeeta Devkar, presenting the next case, which is PZPA 005-22. It is a non-major comprehensive plan amendment, and it is the name of the project is Valley Farm Solar. Last 2 days, I have received some letters in opposition, and I would like to share the same with you. Natasha would help, Kelsey would help handing out those. So this proposal is Aurora Solar LLC, a subsidiary of Avangard Renewables LLC, proposing a minor comprehensive plan amendment to redesignate 360 acres from moderate low density residential and high intensity activity center to green energy production. As mentioned, the area is 360 acres and location is 4.5 miles southeast of Central Coolidge. The owner applicant is Nevitt Farms LLP, Gregory Wirtz, and the agent is Valley Farms LLP, and J.D. Rillian is the agent representing the owner. This is the location map for Valley Farms Solar Project. You can see that, again, it is in Central Coolidge, within the unincorporated Pinal County, and this is the further map showing the comprehensive plan land use designation as existing. One can see that there are two land use existing designations, which is moderate low density residentials, 1 to 3.5 dwelling units per acre, which is just the corner on the northwest portion of this, which is a very, I would say, well, 1/3, less than 1/3. And the high intensity activity center is the larger part of this parcel. And the proposed land use designation for this area that is marked in yellow is requesting for green energy production. This is the vicinity map and zooming into the location for this project, and one can see that it is almost kind of a county island, unincorporated Pinal, surrounded by Coolidge to the north and south, and one can see that it has state land to the east side, and north has the portion which is general rural.
Sangeeta, you not only gave us 2 letters opposed, but you gave us one that was for this as well that you didn't mention from CAC.
I was planning to share that at the end when we are talking about. So I just shared some of the letters that I received last 2 days.
Okay.
There are 3 of them which are in opposition. There's one college, CAC college, which has, which is supporting this case.
Okay.
So this is the aerial map showing the location once again, showing undeveloped area for this a portion of the county. Further zooming into the zoning for this category, the circle shows the portion that is part of the high-intensity activity center as designated. And the hatched line is, you can see that more than 3/4 of the area falls under this area of the high-intensity activity center. One can see that it is general rural at this point in terms of zoning, surrounded by Coolidge to the south and a state land to the southeast. And again, a moderate low-density residential, which is a very small portion to the northwest, which is in darker blue hatched portion. You can also see that the area that has been also showing the buffer for the 600 feet that have been notified, showing by the red dotted line.
Could you take a question from Supervisor Miller?
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You go back to the previous page.
This one?
Yes. So there's no key on here. What does the purple indicate?
It is the incorporated area.
No, that's the incorporated area of Coolidge.
Coolidge.
Okay.
That's correct.
I just wanted to be clear with that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
So,
I did not clarify that. Yeah.
We've got some islands and we got some things going on here. Okay, thank you.
This is again showing the parcels. There are 4 parcels that are involved for this or been requesting for this change for Valley Farm Solar, and the notification for 600 feet showing like not very many parcels. However, they were notified from the county. This is the site context showing the existing infrastructure for this Valley Farm Solar project. The red circle is the high-intensity activity center. One can see that the moderate low-density residential is to the western side. Employment, which is purple, is a part of that whole larger area, the half of that area that is being shown. And one can see that the 230 kV transmission line and the 500 kV transmission line actually crosses those from north to south and then goes to the west. A location from that perspective probably could be ideal for that, but looking from other perspectives, I would like to show some analysis in the further slides. The current conditions, active agricultural land, relatively flat topography, transmission lines that cross the project, which is 500 and 230 kV lines. Proposal is a standard solar generation for 100 megawatt and battery storage that includes the standard, as I said, infrastructure, which is solar array of PV modules, battery energy storage, O&M building, and associated infrastructure. Timing of development, expected commercial operation date is 2024 as projected by in the proposal. So some of the discussion items, one of the major one is that of the comprehensive plan and its designation as a high-intensity activity center. Of the 360 acres, 330 acres are designated under this high-intensity activity center. Approximately 30 acres is designated moderate low-density residential. So activity centers basically are locations that are strategic locations identified in the comprehensive plan as projected for economic activity, growth to create jobs, and our service centers. Those are located after a great analysis based on multiple layers of understanding and analysis, with its transportation, it is locations to city centers, and various other infrastructure analysis that goes into this identifying those locations. So as far as the high-intensity activity center characteristics, there is a core zone, there's a core periphery zone, and a transition zone. What it implies is that within the core zone is the high intensity, which talks about 50% basic employment with 20% service employment and 30% residential. And it slowly kind of increases when it goes towards the transition zone, with 40% employment in the core periphery zone and 50% basic employment in the transition zone. And service industries slowly kind of reduce when it goes towards the transition zone, where residentials kind of slightly start merging towards the transition zone. And basically, and this is the location of the activity centers across the county. As mentioned earlier, the locations are strategic locations for employment and services, with and they are projected for commercial growth. So the vision for the county, where Valley Farm Solar Facility at this proposed location does not align with our comprehensive plan. What we were suggesting and what we were talked about was this location is along regionally significant routes, principal arterials lies along with the ADOT and preferred alignment along North-South Freeway. It has an airport towards the east side. Its proximity to existing, the central downtown Coolidge and the other manufacturing units that are coming up in Coolidge area. So location, if there is, it's allowed for green energy production, would be a loss of commercial potential. If land use is changed to green energy production, it would lock the land for the solar use for a span of 35 to 40 years. This is a lost opportunity and a potential for any new commercial development in a prime location that is envisioned for a diverse mix of activities generating employment for Pinal County residents. We also have one of the other aspects is existing acreage for green energy production till date. Approximately 20,000 acres has been already classified as green energy production, which is awaiting to be rezoned. And the question is, do we want additional land locked, and especially in an area which has a potential for better, commercial use. Some pictures taken along the project area, and this is along all four sides of the project area.
Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
Yes.
I realize that it's landlocked by Coolidge, and doesn't Coolidge already have something like 16% of their land designated as green energy production, and they've kind of stopped allowing any more in the town?
I'm not aware of what Coolidge development plan is, but we did share our plan and to the Coolidge, Development Services Division, and we received no responses as far as this project was concerned.
Okay, thank you.
So in terms of public responses from agencies, we did not receive any response when this presentation was made. I had one letter in opposition and one email in support. Staff recommended denial. Planning and zoning recommended denial unanimously. And after this was already uploaded in Novus, I received a couple of letters, which I have shared with you, 3 of them in opposition and 1 of them in support for this project. And I'm open for any questions at this point.
Steve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff's recommendation for denial, what was your criteria that you used to deny it?
So the 3 main aspects was the comprehensive plan. it designates, as I said, it does not align with the vision for the county. It the activity center, which is projected for a diverse use of various uses.
Can you give me an example of those uses?
One could have commercial areas which can be developed. It could be service centers. It could be a restaurant, big box. Based on what is required at those locations. And I just showed you the exhibit that talks about what.
Go back to those pictures. Yeah. Go back to those. No.
With the power line.
Other direction.
Other direction. I know.
Right
You're saying that this is right now not showing any, and it is currently open and.
I can't even see a building.
I get that.
Okay. We've gone through this numerous times. I just don't see somebody building a big box out there. I don't see anybody building a restaurant out there. I don't even see a convenience store going out there. So I'll just leave it at that for now.
Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other question I have in regards to this is when you talk about the comprehensive plan, how old is that? I don't remember having any kind of discussion, honestly, for this particular area.
For activity centers?
Right. For this area, yeah. We've had a lot of discussions about the Santan Valley area and all that, but I don't remember too many of these.
We did some out by Maricopa, if I may, Mr. Chairman. We did some out by Maricopa. That these activity centers are very subjective. They're ideas that you want to have that availability in the future. And I don't know. I'm still going on the idea that a solar field is temporary. If that land becomes that valuable, there'll be somebody that'll see that solar field go away and they'll be building a big box because there'll be a need for it.
Anyone over here?
Mr. Chairman, we talked about the comprehensive plan, and I think you said activity, like a recreational activity was maybe included in there. Did I hear that correctly or no?
It's a high-intensity activity center.
Oh.
That is a land use designation which allows multiple uses based on employment, 50% employment, and the way the core is designed with higher intensity in the core. Periphery goes a little less intense, and then the periphery of the outside just goes, which increased in residential. So there's, that's how those activity centers are designed to be projected in terms of development.
Well, Coolidge has a high-intensity activity center downtown Main Street with a bunch of empty lots, but it's coming back, thankfully. Mm-hmm. And I can't see downtown moving out here underneath these power lines, which is, there are some houses, some developments to the west, but I just don't see why the county would want to manage this gentleman's property in this way.
Are you
presentation?
Are you still presenting?
No, I finished with my presentation. To continue with what board member Stephen Miller was talking about, what were the reasons? The comprehensive plan vision was one of the reasons. From a planning perspective, the locations of those are strategically designed or planned or located based on projected growth in these areas. That was first. The second one was loss of commercial and landlocking them for a 30 to 40 years time period. The fourth was existing acreage in terms of green energy production. We already have that why not tap into that to look at potentials for rezoning? They're already designated for green energy production. So those were the reasons why staff was recommending denial.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
What areas are set for green energy? Which already?
There are multiple areas, and staff is in the process of updating GIS maps to reflect that correctly, and which can be made public to share the designated land use areas as green energy production, which are not rezoned as of yet.
Okay, but we haven't been given that information of where you think that green energy should go, which sometimes I really wonder whether the government should be telling people what they should do with their land. So that's work in progress. Is that correct? I mean, you don't have those available today.
We have the data, and we have the data of how much area is already designated for green energy production.
Have you shared it with this board?
It is there on the maps, but our GIS maps, they are public information. They need to be updated with the newer things that are going on with updates in our websites.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chair, Todd Williams, Deputy Director, Community Development. Just to respond to a couple of questions. So the Pinal County Comprehensive Plan that was adopted in November of 2019, and it was updated in January 2021. With regards to some of these green energy issues, I know County Manager Liu talked about at the strategic planning session a week ago. We are working on putting together a map that will show you some of the various facilities throughout the county so that you're aware of those types of things. But one of the issues with this site in particular was because of the activity center and future potential highway locations, because of the hub sort of between Phoenix-Tucson area, that was one of the key issues that there was some opposition for. So I'll just leave it at that.
Mr. Chair, just real quick, the future highway coming through, is that the, let's see, how can we say this? We're supposed to say east-west corridor, the north-south? North-south, okay.
Yeah, north-south highway.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
And for just some clarity, we change that comprehensive plan with projects that come along all the time. We've had to change it numerous times, but those are more specific to, it's not like we've done an overall change of the comprehensive plan. There have always been, for lack of a better word, amendments to the plan for a specific site for a specific project.
That is correct. On an annual basis, there are those opportunities to
or project basis.
Correct.
Yes. Okay. So.
Okay, this is a public hearing.
Sure.
Still presenting?
The applicant also has a presentation to make. If you would like to listen to them, that.
Yes.
Thank you, Sangeeta. Good afternoon. Chairman Surdy, Supervisors, it's good to be with you again today. As you know, in a previous life, I spent a lot of time in Pinal County Blue Skies. I'm here for a different reason because of those blue skies, but nonetheless, I'm happy to be here today. Before I get started, I would like to correct a few things on the previous slides that we just saw for the record, if I may. On the initial slide on our introduction, we were referred to as a different company. I do want to clarify that I'm an employee and represent Next Era Energy. We are not part of Avangrid or IB. Nope, no sweat. But we do want to clarify that who we do represent and what we are here for. I believe the rest of the slides were accurate, minus one other addition. I believe we have several other letters of support that have lost their way on the way, and we'll be sure those are submitted to the record. But with that, I'll go ahead and get started. I've been with this body before on several occasions on behalf of NextEra, and again, I'm a full-time employee there. I run the Southwest region. of the U.S. with a focus on Arizona here. And there's going to be a reason for that I explained. So I'm going to talk about Valley Farms. I'm going to try and get through a little bit of the first few slides first, because I understand that this body and Chairman, that you've seen these multiple times before. With that, I guess I can click here. Thank you. Okay, so just quickly going over, Chairman Surdy, a little bit about NextEra Energy Resources. We are an American-owned and operated company. All of our operating assets are traded on the New York Stock Exchange. It is an American company. We do not have any assets that are offshore. We have presence in 49 states. We've got more than 30 gigawatts today that are coming online, and we're a world leader in energy storage. That is something that is continuing to come on. I'd like to talk about energy storage for a second, because I think that there are some things that have been said previously in this room about energy storage and where solar comes in and how solar only presents 6 or 7 hours of generation in Pinal County. It's not accurate. There's something called NCF, the net capacity factor, which is what assesses, like, you take the hours in a year, 760, right, hours in a year, and then you divide it by the amount of time that the sun is shining in Pinal County. You get around 40 to 48% of the time when that sun is producing energy. You then move that into batteries. Those batteries then produce and continue to on-ramp into the areas where that goes up, in areas that need light, when everybody comes home from work, and then between the hours of 6 and 10, you have the batteries. So you really have close to about 18 hours of use on renewable energy. That's why we think it's really important to continue to invest in storage. I'd also like to point out that we're the number 4 investor in American infrastructure: pipelines, natural gas, nuclear, wind, solar, transmission, R&D. We're going to be deploying over $55 billion in 2022 alone into the United States across all those technologies that I mixed. Although we are a renewable energy company, we are an optimization company. We don't believe that it's just wind. We don't believe that it's just solar. We believe it's an optimized mix to have the most resilient grid that an area can possibly have at the most competitive price that it can be. And that differentiates us quite a bit from the market. Okay, I'm getting down into why we are here today. Arizona, without question, is one of our top 3 markets in the United States. Arizona, California, Texas. That's really the top 3 that are generating everything going on in the renewable energy industry and transition. As you see, and as you just saw before you today, some of those markets are taking arbitrage and generating solar areas or generating renewable energy in one area and moving it all the way to the other. Luckily for this project and for all of our Arizona projects, all the megawatts we generate in Arizona are the megawatts that stay in Arizona. We've been in Arizona since about 2013. We've got about $2.1 billion of capital infrastructure invested into this state. In 2020 alone, we paid $1.8 million in property taxes, over $20 million in land payments. 3/4 of those property taxes and land payments were right here in Pinal County. We've got more than $43 million in payroll today. At this very moment, we have over 540 people employed in the state of Arizona. Over 350 of those are right here in Pinal County. We continue to partner with Arizona on the issues that are at hand today, from both renewable energy and helping the utility companies with their load that's growing in Arizona, all the way to water issues that we're partnering with the local water districts. Chairman Surdy, Board of Supervisors, I'd like to talk a little bit about the demand. As much as I'd like to think so, we don't just show up in areas and build things because we think it's a good idea. We do it because there's a demand signal there. It's a free market, and there's no more of a free market or a Wild West right now than the renewable energy industry. And because there's a demand signal, that's why we're here in Pinal County. And there's a cross-section of an ecosystem growing here that needs to be paid attention to. And it wasn't anything I was planning on bringing up today, but I thought it was interesting that a company that has committed more than any other retail company landed here in Pinal County. It's Home Depot. I ask you to Google Home Depot and look at their renewable energy goals, that they want to be 100%, not net zero, but real zero, meaning that 100% generation, they're not offsetting with RECs, but 100% of Home Depot's generation needs to come from renewables. That's the commitment that they've made to their shareholders. So each store has to have 100% renewable energy come into it. Right? If you cover their rooftops with solar panels, 25 to 30% of their load will be taken care of. Where's the other 70% coming from? And that's where you see APS, SRP, the ACC get involved and start to move the levers of the macroeconomy to bring these people to the Pinal County in the areas where there's electricity and there's a high-end labor market to bear. That cross-section of high-end labor matched with the affordable generation that's got no volatility associated with it. Nobody has to worry about natural gas moving around. Nobody has to worry about oil moving around. All you have to do is focus on the fact that that energy price is going to be set for a 30-year time frame at a cost-competitive price. APS, SRP, TEP, and much more continue to commit to these principles. P&G, Lucid, Nikola, TSMC, Intel, Heritage Battery, these are just a fraction of the folks that are coming here into Pinal County because of those reasons I just said. They are changing the economy. They are bringing jobs. We have a place in that market, and it's to provide them energy at a cost-competitive price at a rate that their shareholders demand. Okay, and why we are here today. Valley Farm Solar. We're between 50 and 100 megawatts. A lot goes into that, into how you rate, what you have. But right now, as a base case, we have a contracted project where we can afford no less than 50 megawatts to an off-taker. It's here. Again, it's a huge differentiator here because a lot of folks will continue to come up here, or a lot of applicants, and talk to you about resiting these things. And it's important to have one thing that's sited and just rezone it because it's in a good location, and then it will sit there for years and years and years until someone can finance that. You can't grow on it, you can't build on it, you can't do anything on it because it's cited as green energy. Right? When we show up, it's because we have a project that we can build on our balance sheet. We're a $250 billion company. We don't have to go out and look for financing in order to build something. When I'm in front of you and I'm asking you to do this, it's because we are going to build it. It's going to get built. We've already capitalized the project. The money's there. We believe it's an excellent location. As you see from the pictures, north, south, east, and west, it's hard to see anything on the horizon. It accommodates the north-south freeway and will comply with ADOT's preferred alignment. We've been in conversations with ADOT for over a year for this project, and we will continue to work with them to give them whatever standoff is necessary when and if that road is built. We believe it aligns very well with the definition of economic stability within the general plan. And then finally, what I'm getting ready to get into next is tax revenue and job creation. I would like to touch a little bit on the economic sustainability piece before I go back, and I would like to do something. I made a mistake that I missed in the beginning of this presentation, and I did not thank the county staff as well as Sanjita. We've been in this county in particular since 2015, Mr. Chairman, and I can tell you that there's no more professional staff that we continue to work with than this county staff. It just so happens that on this individual point, we happen to respectfully and politely disagree with their assessment.
Supervisor Goodman has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure that we identify that particular area right there where it says temporary use, that it will maintain a decommissioning bond and allow it to be repurposed in 25 years. That's something that I've heard 35 and 40 years, a lot of these plants, but from what I can tell and what I'm familiar with, they don't last that long.
So what I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Goodman, thank you for the question. What I can tell you is in our optimization models on the cost, what we have to plug into it is the new technology that will be on-ramping. Sure is what all of our cell phones looked like in 2005 versus what they look like now, versus what a solar panel looked like no less than 3 years ago. We believe that all the assets that we continue to build will go through a repower. Now, we don't know what that horizon looks like, but it's a very conservative view to say that at the 25-year mark, we will take a hard look at what repowering looks like, and the life of these is no more than 30 years. So when we say 35, 40 years, I would love to have a solar panel that was guaranteed and was secured at that rate for 35 to 40 years. You can't find a supplier that will guarantee you anything past 25 years. And as the gentleman here may know, that as soon as you run out of that guarantee from your supplier, you're at risk. And it doesn't make any economic sense to build beyond that risk and finance your project appropriately. And again, we didn't get to be the company that we are today and have the economic focus that we do today by making those types of decisions that put us at risk.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I want to say, because the 30 to 40 years, that's the first time I've ever heard that number. I've always heard the 25-year number. I mean,
I believe in this room that's been 40 years as well as people have referred to them as permanent, and it's not the case.
It's not. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. In regards to the jobs created, I mean, really the jobs created are just the construction, because after it's built, it's only a few people that operate it. Is that correct?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor McClure, I would like to answer that question in depth. I'm certainly not trying to skirt your question, but I do believe it's worth a full explanation. But to be upfront, 200 to 300 jobs to build it, that's the number. I would like to tell you, though, that Pinal County is the top county in the United States of folks that have full-time jobs as solar panel installers. This is a top market in the United States. Arizona, specifically southern Arizona, is a market that will continue to generate its power from solar. It is cost competitive. It evens out any type of volatility in any rate case. It attracts folks. And no different than saying a carpenter is only employed by building a single home. It's just not necessarily the case. At this second, we could have close to 500 people here up from Coolidge and ask them what they've been doing for the past 3 to 4 years or what they believe they're going to be doing for the next 5 to 6. And it's going from contract to contract to contract.
I understand that. We have constituents that sit in the audience come to us that I know that build these units. And back to your property taxes, really the biggest part of the property taxes is only about the first 7 years until you've depreciated your assets. Is that a correct statement?
That's not accurate. So to be very clear, and we just went through this assessment this morning, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor McClure, we just went through this morning. In Pinal County, the tax assessor assesses us at a 35 depreciation rate. That means that we go all the way down by about 2.64% every year. So if you model this out on an Excel sheet, we are paying over $150,000 for the next 35 years. And the good thing is we have an operating project. This is not speculative. In 2021, we paid $922,000 to Pinal County. That is within pennies of what our forecast was. And we believe with the tax moving forward, unless tax policy changes, that's exactly what it's going to be. Batteries is a 15-year depreciation. Solar's 35-year depreciation in Pinal County. And just to be clear, is that we are assessed at a certain rate. Renewable energy in Arizona reassesses 80% on top of that to depreciate it, and then we are then taxed by Pinal County at that rate. But I'd like to clarify that these plants, at the bare minimum, are $180 million capital infrastructure plants. So even when you shrink the depreciation down and you add the 80% plus the 12% depreciation on top of it, you're still talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for a 100-megawatt plant. That $1.8 million in property taxes is every 5 years. And this is a simple math equation that we should all be able to agree on, because down the hallway, they should be able to tell us exactly how they came to the 922K and what it's going to look like in 2038.
And I'm not trying to badger you. I'm just making sure that we get this out, because I see varying reports and people go all ballistic about these. So thank you for your explanation.
Yes, sir. Okay, I think we've touched on a couple of these bubbles, and I'll continue to move through the presentation. When we came before both Coolidge and this board in Pinal County, we made a commitment that we were going to be part of this community. Again, we see Pinal County, we see the different incorporated areas from Eloy to Coolidge to other areas as partners in what we're getting ready to do. And I know some people may disagree with this and this, but the only way that we can show that is we put our money where our mouth is and we make commitments and we follow through. In 2022 alone, we just have 2 operating projects at 120 megawatts, and we contributed over $125,000. Those are dollars. Those aren't grants or anything that could be tax rebated. Those are $125,000 to nonprofits in Pinal County alone. I believe we've already talked about the jobs and the megawatts that we plan on generating. We're 3/4 of a mile to the closest cluster of homes. The letters that we sent out were a 1,200-foot ring, and we're 2.5 miles from a previous layout where we departed from zoning in Coolidge because there was no secrets that the community did not want us in an area that was north of Coolidge Avenue. We did have some conversations with quite a few folks that said if we got south of Bartlett that there would be support there, and I believe we've found that, and we're 2.5 miles away from that original layout. So with that, Mr. Chairman, Board of Supervisors, gentlemen, and staff, I'll close my presentation. I'm happy to stand here for questions.
Any more questions before we go to public comment? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One of the issues that's brought up is dust and weeds. How we've talked about it in meetings before, but briefly, how does your company deal with this?
I believe we deal with it with the way the county holds us accountable. I can tell you that there are multiple counties and states that allow us to have natural vegetation grow under the solar. That's our preference. Our preference is not to clean sweep everything and keep it there. We'd like natural vegetation to grow. We believe that helps with wildlife and environmental and a whole host of other issues. But here in Pinal County and in Coolidge, we've got to clean sweep things, which means that we've got to keep them grown. And then, through the siting process and through the permitting process, we are usually given stipulations on what exactly, how that needs to be grown, what plant needs to be grown. And once we get that from the governing body, that's exactly what we do.
Okay. Now, this is the public hearing, and I have several requests to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board of Supervisors.
Kirk McCarville. And if we could get your address, that would be great.
Kirk McCarville, 9405 North Paseo, Palo Verde, Casa Grande, Arizona. I'm here on behalf of the Wirtz family, Mr. Greg Wirtz. I've been in the real estate brokerage business in Pinal County for 42 years. I work for the Land Advisors Organization. We're the largest land-only brokerage company in the U.S. We're a market leader in Arizona. I also have a CCIM designation, which less than 10% of commercial real estate practitioners in the U.S. have. It's a very difficult designation to get, and I think I'm uniquely qualified to comment on the historic interest area in a little bit, but I want our high-intensity activity center in a little bit, but I have some other comments first. Mr. Wirtz is a generational farmer, leading edge in technology in water conservation. His father was the first to implement drip irrigation in the county 50 years ago because he saw the writing on the wall for water and agriculture. And he even started a construction company that installed and built drip irrigation systems for many of his neighbors and people in Arizona and even New Mexico and Texas because he was trying to prolong his agricultural business. 6 or 7 years ago, we sold their home farm to some other investors because the writing was on the wall. Even with wall-to-wall drip irrigation installed at millions of dollars, they didn't see a sustainable economic model to continue farming. The 80 acres that Mr. Wirtz has, I think, is the last piece of property that he owns, and he wants to retire. He doesn't have any children that want to continue the farming operation. He doesn't have any children that he wants to continue the farming operation. He's currently the president of Calcott, a national cotton brokerage company. He travels nationwide talking to farmers about farm economics and farm economies, and there's nobody in this room more qualified to talk about agricultural economics than him. There's probably nobody in this county. He doesn't see a future in farming. He wants to retire. Just had a new grandbaby at Christmas time. I think he wants to spend more time with the grandbaby. The agricultural model in Arizona is broken. It's broken severely because there's a lot more farmland than there is water. So the way to balance that equation is less farmland or more water. There's only one of those things we can do. And so as we try to balance that, what is the best way to do that? I think it's solar. A good example is the solar farms that we have here, Saint Solar. 5 acre-feet per acre, 1,000 acres. It's 5,000 acre-feet of water. When NextEra built that out, where does that 5,000 acre-feet go? To the neighbors, to the guys that want to continue farming. Maybe they'll help postpone that activity for a while. But when you look at water in Arizona, and you look at Lake Mead, and you look at Lake Powell, and you hear people talking about those going dead pool, if I'm representing the applicant, so is my time up?
It actually is. How much more do you have?
Just a couple more comments.
Okay,
I would like to comment on the high intensity. So we also represent Macerich Corporation, who is the largest developer of shopping centers in Arizona. It's a New York Stock Exchange traded company. They own a 320-acre mall site next to my client's property, which would meet the definition of high-intensity activity center. Macerich actually has a development agreement on that piece where the city of Coolidge would have to extend the sewer and water out there for them to build that. They came to my company a little over a year ago, and mall planners are long-range planners. They look out 30 years. They said, we don't see an opportunity for that, even if somebody else builds infrastructure, take it to the market and get rid of it.
And did you have one more point?
We have it under contract at a price way less than solar. I was told I wouldn't have a 3-minute time frame because I was representing the applicant, so I have a lot more comments, but I'll honor your wish.
Okay, thank you. Noah Hiscox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and supervisors, for letting me speak today. I'd just like to...
And what is your address?
Oh, I live in Coolidge, Arizona. Okay. 229 West Central. I'd like to say that, first of all, number 17 here, you'll note it says that it's a zoning change consideration from moderate low-density residential to high-intensity activity center, from that to green energy production. And you'll note that the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended a denial of this, and it was unanimous. There's a reason why they didn't recommend that, of course. This could be rewritten as currently there's 360 acres of farmland that we'd like to consider converting to 360 acres of solar panels, battery storage, and power lines and power panels. That might be a better description and one more easily understood. You'll also notice that everybody's previous to me, all the speakers, everyone was up here with their hand out. Everybody has something that they want. They want to make some money off this project. I'm not here for that. I'm here because I've been a farmer for 45 years, and I feel very strongly about keeping farmland farms and solar panels in the right location. And I feel strongly also that this is the wrong location. It's not far from this location that we have the Coolidge Airport. You remember what the Chandler Airport looked like 20 years ago. It's changed quite a bit. Coolidge is going to grow too. Phoenix and Tucson are probably going to meet in the middle right here. So it's on your backs to figure this all out in the future, and you've got a really tough job, and I applaud you for it. I'd like to just say that I've been farming 45 years, Coolidge, Florence area. We farm 3,000 acres. We employ 7 full-time, 3 part-time workers. All those families reside here in Pinal County. I served on the Coolidge Unified School District Board 8 years, Florence Coolidge Natural Resource Conservation District Board for 41 years, Natural Resource Education Center Board for 33 years, served on 2 Arizona State Governor-appointed boards, Arizona Grain and Research Promotion Council, Arizona Department of Water Resources. I'm a supervisor on 2 local ag boards, Chandler Ginning Company and also San Carlos Irrigation Drainage District Board, both here in Coolidge.
Can you wrap it up? Do you have much more?
I'll be as quick as I can. I'd just like to say that farmland, there was a comment earlier, farmland that would be converted to solar will never again ever produce food. It won't change. It'll be altered forever. And the thought I wanted to leave you with is even 1 more acre of industrial-grade solar would be too many on farmland.
All right, thank you. Greg Wirtz.
Greg Wirtz. My address is 12006 North Hazeldine Road in Casa Grande, Arizona. I have 160 acres of this 360 acres. And Kirk McCarville was right. I am in the process of retiring, and this was a big part of my retirement project, my plan. I've been looking forward to this for a long time. It's just tough making the farming work right now. I feel solar is a good option for retiring farmland. There's just more farmland than we have water, I feel. I think it's a good project. When I put this land up for sale, they were far and away, NextEra was ahead of any other offer I got. And so I wanted to maximize the money I could get, and so that's why I chose NextEra. Again, I don't agree with all the anti-solar rhetoric. It's just amazing. You can't go anywhere without seeing them on schools and houses, and if they were so bad, we shouldn't do that, but we do. So, Mr. Chairman, Supervisors, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg Barron Gafford.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak today. My name is Greg Barron Gafford. I'm at 818 North Montezuma Avenue in Tucson. I'm a professor at the University of Arizona, and I've come up from the university today to speak on behalf of some proven facts that stem from about a decade of peer-reviewed literature, peer-reviewed research, conducted with scientific methods, and that has been open and transparent, all conducted here in the state. I wanted to speak to three different aspects of what solar does and what solar does not. One, we've found repeatedly that solar does not leak any chemicals into the soil or lead to any soil pollution. My team has been looking at this for about 6 years. We've been actually growing pollinator habitat to support pollinators reaching into adjacent farms and actually growing food within and around solar arrays. And we've done this extensive testing because we don't want to do anything that could lead to potential chemicals getting into the food supply for the people that we represent at the university, the people of Arizona. Second, solar does not create more dust or contribute to haboobs. In fact, we found decreased wind speeds within solar arrays repeatedly. In fact, when we are outside and it is very windy, we tend to work within the solar arrays for that wind blocking feature. And in fact, on top of that, we've even begun using the wind mitigating effects of solar panels to help with food production on some of the indigenous lands up in the Hopi and Navajo regions. The third one being that solar installations do not create any kind of heat island effect that negatively impacts nearby fields. This is one thing that we've been monitoring at this point for about 9 years consecutively. Any heat that you've been hearing about within a solar array is non-detectable outside of that solar array, particularly when natural vegetation can be reestablished. In fact, in the last 8 years, we've been quantifying the benefits to agriculture of growing food intentionally within the spaces between rows of solar arrays and under solar arrays, quantifying benefits in terms of agricultural production and increased revenue and increased capacity to keep agriculture in Arizona, given all of the water restrictions you've been hearing about. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. I'm used to having 50 minutes with a captive audience as a professor, but I'll reside with these three. Thank you.
Courtney Ramirez.
Hello, Courtney Ramirez again from here in Pinal County. And I want to bring up a point too. I really wish you guys would do Zoom. I've personally asked many times for the Board of Supervisors to do Zoom to give the public who cannot be here because they're working the opportunity to be able to speak on behalf of what is on these agendas. And so far, y'all have refused to allow the public an opportunity during these meetings to be able to speak via Zoom. So consider that, because I personally know a lot of other people that wanted to be here today to oppose especially the solar project, but they can't because they're working. And if they had the Zoom option, they would have been able to exercise their First Amendment and oppose. So consider doing Zoom for the people. It's not fair to just restrict it to these people that are able to be here. But yes, I do oppose this. You guys were so happy to talk about Home Depot and the jobs. This power thing that you guys just approved, it's 520 acres altogether with the power and the solar. That's for, that area is for growth for jobs. The gentleman didn't even finish 3 full-time jobs if you're lucky after the solar panel project is complete. 3? 3? That's not acceptable to me, and I hope that's not acceptable to you guys. But these solar panels are toxic, and I went over the list. There's arsenic, lead, copper indium, cadmium telluride, silicone tetrachloride, hexafluorothane, lead, polyvinyl fluoride. All this is detrimental to animals and humans. Look up the Solana project in the West Valley, one of the largest solar projects. A monsoon came and wiped it out, damaged it, and it's currently leaking into the air and into the water still. And I don't even understand the concept. These guys are flashing their millions and billions of dollars to your guys' face, hoping you guys will approve it, yet they get taxpayer bond money to tear up the project in 30 years? How is that? What? Are you serious? Taxpayer bond money when they're flashing their billions of dollars in our faces, yet let's have the taxpayers pay to tear it down in 20 or 30 years. That's not right. I don't want my tax money going to something like that. We need jobs out in that area. We don't need it poisoned by solar farms. What else did I want to say about that? Yeah, I highly oppose it. There's 20,000 acres. The city of Coolidge right now has 8,000 acres of solar. And I'm surprised that you guys didn't know that what the general plan looked like. You alluded that you didn't understand what the general plan looked like. But yeah, there's 20,000 acres in Pinal County and 8,000 alone for green energy. Let's put the no vacancy sign up for this stuff and give us people good jobs. Okay. These projects are around for 20 or 30 years.
Need to wrap it up.
That stops jobs. If these 520 acres are taken for utility, where's the jobs for the people? Do you guys not care about good jobs for the people that live here? In 20, 30, 40 years, we do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak on this item?
Hello, my name is Brenda Hiscox. I live at 229 West Central Avenue in Coolidge. I'd like to thank our elected supervisors. Thank you for giving us this time to speak before you today. We appreciate your dedication and service to our community. Since back in October of 21 and learning that the City of Coolidge leadership had approved approximately 8,000 acres, yes, 16%, of the city land for industrial solar, including and especially agricultural land, the citizens of Coolidge began an effort to make known to our city heads that, while this was in part our fault for not being engaged in the development planning process by attending meetings, we were opposed to industrial solar in our city. Up to that point, they had no idea, and they had been led to believe that we were not opposed. We began a movement to let the Coolidge City Mayor, City Manager, Development Services Director, Planning and Zoning Commissioners, and City Board members know that we did not desire 1 additional acre of industrial solar within the city. And that success in convincing them led to them stopping all new future solar. It has also led us to the city or the county Planning and Zoning Commissioners with a 9-0 vote, and we're here today in front of you, our supervisors. We learned so very much from our retained climatologist, Josh White, who unfortunately could not be here today, who refutes much of the information that this gentleman presented earlier. He taught us about the huge increases to dust creation, changing lands to solar. We learned about high-pressure weather changes we can now expect with the completion of the 8,000 acres. He said, and I quote, "The weather has been changed with these actions." Mr. White had distressing information about the various dust mitigation chemicals and techniques used under and around industrial solar, and the concern about the eventual leaching of these mitigations into our water tables. One of his main concerns is the lack of technology and innovation to store the energy to match the desire to create solar energy at this point in time. He said, and I quote, "Industrial solar is theological in nature, but based in fact. At this point, we do not have the opportunity to store the energy created, but we are creating high-pressure systems, microclimates, already by doing what we are doing, and we're doing this all around the world, changing our climate and not knowing what the future outcome is." Here's my most important point. A dear friend of mine builds this kind of solar for a company based in Arizona. He said, and I quote, I have been watching what you folks are doing in your community with industrial solar, and I commend your efforts. After speaking with him, I now have come to the following conclusion. I am in favor of industrial solar. After all of my many months of opposition to this, my statement may come as a complete shock. My change of heart came after speaking with him and learning from my friend who builds solar. Industrial solar is not what we have been talking about all these months. Industrial solar is when Walmart places solar panels on the roof or their parking lot to power the lights in the parking lot. I'm almost done. Industrial solar by definition is commercial and industrial property owners installing panels on their buildings to create power for that entity. My friend who builds solar panels says, and I quote, "We build this kind of solar, but you need to change your terminology. These companies coming into your area are not building industrial solar. They are building large-scale utility solar. We build utility scale solar, and we build these projects typically out of town in undeveloped, cheap land with little impact to surrounding communities. Surrounding communities.
I need you to wrap it up.
There's a Scottsdale-based company that came down and just purchased 4,150 acres of land in Florence for $82.7 million, addressing Supervisor Miller's concerns. There's a better use for this land. Also, those pictures are about 2.5 miles from my house.
All right.
The court just ruled that the ACC acted lawfully.
Okay, that's
in
about how
letting
far I let everyone else go over, so I'm going to have to ask you to go. Is anyone else going to like to speak?
Oh, you're leaving. I'll go with you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Debbie Neely, and I live at 280 North Christensen Road in Coolidge, Arizona. Everybody in this room wants to do the right thing. If we didn't believe that, we wouldn't be here today sitting on this board or sitting in this audience. The zoning amendment today relates back to a key purpose of this board, which is to plan, promote, protect, and preserve Pinal County development. It all starts with the plan. We know it's on the comprehensive plan. We're talking about 360 acres. 30 acres was designed for moderate low density. The other 330 was designed for high intensity. There's the plan. It is incumbent on this board to plan, protect it, and preserve it, and also promote it. But today we're being asked to change the plan. A solar developer tells you that the land will be more useful for solar facilities rather than commercial and residential. My question to you is, more useful for who? More useful for how many? This came before P&Z, as you know, and they recommended that staff recommended that the request be denied. The board unanimously denied it. The final decision is now before you all. I know you've heard this before today, but I'm going to reiterate it, please. At the P&Z meeting, these main facts weighed P&Z's denial of this zoning request. Number one, staff's report said high-intensity activity centers are areas projected by the comprehensive plan to be strategic locations with corridors for transportation, resulting in areas for employment at various levels. That is a quote. Areas projected for economic activity, growth models for employment services, commercial, and retail. The second thing P&Z staff also reported was, and I'm kind of surprised that nobody's got a real number on this or data to support it, 20,000 Pinal County acres had already been approved for solar development, and P&Z's report stated on staff level, quote, "That's enough." Changing, and this is another quote, changing this zoning would result in lost opportunity and potential for any commercial development as expected by the comprehensive plan. I shared with you all today, the question came up about what's Coolidge doing, what did they do, where's this, we see this property, and other property, as you help me know, because we may be here again, is landlocked by the city of Coolidge. The map that I shared with you shows that this particular property borders the planned north-south freeway, which is defined, again, quote, a strategic location with corridors for transportation resulting for employment at various levels. Again, Coolidge citizens got together over their issues with all the development that had been proposed, and they said that's enough. So in summary, you all, I'm here today to say the final decision is here today, I believe, and we all wanted to do the right thing. I started with that. And so what is the right thing, and what will we do? Do we do what is right for a handful of people, maybe 5 or less? Or do we do what is right for the thousands of individuals and businesses that are currently here and are to come?
Okay, I need you to wrap it up.
Will you protect and preserve and promote? Or will this become a, quote, lost opportunity for Pinal County's economic growth?
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name is Bonnie Weaver. I live at 9284 East Christie Place in Coolidge. Thank you for letting us speak. As far back as September 2021, as reported in Coastal Agribusiness, serious concerns were being raised back then about the thousands of acres across America being lost from food and fiber production to industrial solar. The article is titled, "Solar Farming, Not a Good Use of Agricultural Land." These are the stated reasons. Solar changes future land productivity from food and fiber to no food and fiber, from production to zero production off of the same land. And that's forever. They usually sterilize the land and it's no good anymore. Lost productivity results in changes to the entire farming community caused by loss of land and the highly unlikely prospect the land will ever produce again. This will be a net loss in jobs with a massive trickle-down effort to every business within the community. I know for a fact that Noah Hiscock farms a lot of wheat. Some of that wheat goes to a grain mill in Tempe that sells flour and grain products. That's causing more jobs. They would be lost without farms. Supported tax benefits from solar are in truth a fraction of tax revenues generated from the entire agriculture economy, that same land. Landowners may be stuck with the unknown decommissioning costs. Solar is 20% efficient at best and declines with each year of operation, and therefore in its inefficiency is not a good use of especially agricultural lands. I'd like someone to ask the gentleman that said they are doing farming underneath these solar panels, who goes in and harvests that, and how does it get harvested? Those are very toxic, and you can't get close to them because of what they generate off. I don't know who's going to go in there and harvest that land. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Good morning. My name is Roger Beatty, 988 East Saddleback in Santan Valley. I'm also the the president of the chamber here in Florence. I'm here in support of NextEra. I think coming late to the game and talking, you guys have talked about most of the things I was going to talk about. We're in an area that is expected to be high activity, but that area is going elsewhere in Coolidge. We're talking about an area that is far out from everything. It's right next to a freeway. It's right next to the airport, but also it's next to the freeway. But the exits on that freeway are not going to be near this piece of property, so it's not going to be viable for people using that freeway to get there. This, in my opinion, is a great place for this purpose. We're in one of the biggest economic booms in Arizona history. In fact, the Phoenix Chamber just pointed out that we're the number 6 state in the country for creating new businesses. And power has to come from somewhere. We have an opportunity to do clean power somewhere where it makes sense, somewhere where it's kind of away from everything. The owner wants to give it give it and sell it, and we're not taking away property from state lands that ranchers have or state land that farmers have. We're taking away somebody that's selling their own personal property. So again, I won't repeat everything else that you guys have already pointed out or things that have been said already, but I'm in favor of this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Liz South, 9655 North Valley Farms Road, Coolidge. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. According to Tax Code 42-13056, solar energy devices shall be valued annually at its taxable original cost, minus any appropriate depreciation as prescribed by the tables adopted by the department. According to the table, solar devices have a 10-year life. The taxable original cost means the original cost minus the value of the investment tax credits, production tax credits, or cash grants in lieu of investment tax credits applicable to the taxable renewable energy equipment, meaning there is no taxation on battery storage or energy credits to be sold. Hard numbers on original value of solar projects are difficult to obtain. Based on research, it is reasonable to say that a 300-acre farm converted to solar has about a $145 million taxable original cost. Roughly 50% of that original cost is battery storage and credits, so those are non-taxable. If we do the math, Pinal County would get about $314,000 in the second year of depreciation. Over a 10-year period, Pinal County will get about $3 million. Pinal County gets about 2% of the initial value of the project in taxes over the duration of 10 years. At year 11, the property reverts to its lowest taxable rate, which is agriculture. At this point, the solar project will only be taxed on the value of the land, not the personal property. That is a pretty great deal for the solar company that wants to produce power that's not going to stay here. I'm sure you gentlemen understand why farmers pay a lower property tax on land, but I'll quickly explain to those in the audience that are unaware. Farmers pay a lot of other taxes while they're producing our food and fiber. They pay taxes on seed, fertilizer, tractors, other equipment, tires. They pay payroll taxes. The list goes on. Their employees contribute taxes to our community as well. Farmers don't build something and leave. They're here contributing year after year. When we allow a piece of property to go from farm to solar, we essentially lose that land forever. It will never be farmed again. Nobody will want to build homes on it because of the ground contamination and extensive cleanup. The property taxes on a used solar property will be insignificant. The residents here get to suffer the consequences of these projects long after the solar companies, I'm almost done, long after the solar companies reach their massive profits and abandon ship for our next easy target. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Hi, Dosky Edwards, 1190 South Obama Road. I oppose the solar fields where I live and spend the majority of my time in Coolidge. No one moved here to live by solar panels. I'd rather look at green fields than a toxic metal wasteland. They don't use much water, do they? Why do you keep putting them on farmland? I covered some land this summer driving to Washington, and all the solar panels I saw were in the middle of nowhere, meaning not next to people's houses. So why don't they build this on state land or something? You're destroying perfectly good farmland. You may say there's no water, but that can change like it has now. Like this San Carlos had no water last year, and now it has plenty of water, and so that can change. And you're destroying good farmland for what? I'm sure you've seen the price of everything gone up, like feeding grain, and taking farmland and turning it into power for people who don't even live in this area is upsetting. Put the fields in their backyards, not mine. Supply and demand. The more fields you take away, the more the demand and prices will go up.
Looked like I saw one more.
Sorry, I didn't fill out a form. My name is Monty Nevitt, 22128 East Cloud Road, Queen Creek. The family's been farming in Arizona since the 1890s. Great-grandpa, the first illegal alien in the family, jumped ship. He was a Norwegian sailor. Jumped ship in New York Harbor, made his way west, and panned gold up in Groom Creek until he settled in the early part of the century on a 20-acre farm on the corner of Broadway and Rural School Road is what they used to call it at the time. 2 years ago, I found a receipt where he had bought some oat, barley, and alfalfa seed from the old Hayden flour mill. A couple of years later, he moved to Chandler. In 1959, we started farming in Santan Valley area, Queen Creek. In fact, it's where your Copper Crossings solar field is now. We were displaced in order for that to go in, and we opposed it. Didn't think we were comfortable with the idea, and it has proven to be a very quiet and peaceful and good neighbor. And I've kind of changed my opinion about it because of that. If we really want to start evaluating contaminants that leach into the water table, I think it would make for an interesting study to find out what happens as a result of farming in the course of any given year and what is actually coming out of the solar panels. It might be something to keep your eye on. Our thought is we want to see Nevitt's farming in another 2 or 3 generations, but we're not confident that that's going to be on this farm in this area. We're going to have to do what some of the other Coolidge, Eloy, and Maricopa area farmers have done and move out of state and find another place that has better water, more water, where we don't have to worry so much about that water cost that we contend with here. Anyway, I just wanted to stand and thank you for your service, tough decisions that need to be made. I served 15 years on the Queen Creek School Board, and sometimes there's just no stance that you can take that's not going to offend someone. But I'm here speaking out in favor of the solar project. I feel that it will be a good neighbor because it provides the infrastructure that it takes for the bigger employees to come to the neighborhood. I serve on SRP's Residential Advisory Board, and we spend most of our time dealing with infrastructure and power lines and what it takes in order to lay the groundwork for true growth and progress to take place, and it's something that everyone's going to have to start getting used to down in this corridor. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing. Is there any more discussion among the board? Mr. Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'm not a big favor in favor of solar, and I wish we had an option to hook up to another station at the nuclear power plant. But it's really important that we vote for people that would support that federally, statewide, and so on. But we don't have that. And so what we have left here is an opportunity to either allow the change, which would produce power in the county and provide power to Arizona, or examine the possibility of blackouts and limited power supply in the future. So it's kind of a bad decision either way we go. I think Ms. Ramirez mentioned bond money, tax bond money. That was kind of reversed. The tax bond, the builder of this solar facility pay money like an insurance policy. That's the bond that's used later on to clean it up. So that's not tax money. And those are just a couple of things I had to comment on.
Anyone else? Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Supervisor Kavanaugh. I wanted to bring up that bond. That is That is so misleading to stand up here and tell us that it's tax dollars that are going to be used to decommission this. That's not the case at all. The NextEra will have to put their own money up and have that available. So that's horrible misinformation. The part about the personal property tax, somebody said that they won't pay any personal property tax. Now, I've been told differently. Who can answer that for me? Because that is a big deal, but they showed all the tax revenue that's going to come off of this. Will they have to pay personal property tax on that equipment? I mean, somebody ought to be able to tell me that, yes or no.
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Miller, I'm looking to the applicant to see if they have the numbers, what they have, but you are correct that on the equipment, and as set by the Department of Revenue guidelines, who I believe he alluded to earlier, sets the depreciation schedules that the assessor then must apply.
And if I may, as I understand it, it depreciates to a point, but it's like a 2.5% of the original value that never goes away. It flattens out at some point, and I understand that, but you do pay personal property tax.
That's correct. The battery flattens out after 15 years to 10% of its initial value.
Okay.
The solar never flattens out. 35% straight line depreciation. At the end of 35 years, it's at 17%. 100%, 97%, 94%. And again, I think all we can do is talk in what has actually happened. Personal property tax that was paid to the personal property tax alone that was paid to Pinal County was $523,748 in December of 2021 on a 100 megawatt project. That is forecasted out. That is signed by the assessor. All the way in 2033, we'll pay $319,000. Right, that's what the county is telling us. So that's all what we can.
Right, and we give for any economic development entity that comes in, we do those exercises so they do understand how much their tax burden will be when they come to Pinal County.
It's just the forecasting exercise.
And it's a forecast, but it's pretty accurate over the years. It's been pretty darn close. Just a couple of things that were said, if I may. If the solar panels are leaching that much contaminants, I can't believe that there has not been a major story about that. I have not heard that. I looked at Mr. White's paper. I tried to validate all the things he had because we were given some information from him, and I could not find collaboration on any of that. So I don't know where he was coming up with this stuff. How a solar panel would create wind is absolutely, I just can't even get there. So, they're talked about you'll never be able to farm this property because of the contaminants, which I don't think there's any contaminants. Nobody's ever been able to prove to me that there's contaminants. But it's okay if we put a shopping center on there. I really wonder how many crops we can grow on asphalt, because the shopping center would have a whole lot of asphalt. So, I mean, if the justification is, well, we got to save it for asphalt so we can put a shopping center out there, you're still not going to be able to grow any crops in the future. And lost opportunities, that's a crystal ball. I'd like to see who's reading that, because we need somebody up here to give us even more forecasts. Opportunity is available in Pinal County. That's kind of our slogan. Wide open opportunities. Whatever that opportunity is, this is an opportunity for a solar company. There'll be an opportunity for some other kind of manufacturing. There'll be other opportunities for people in the future. That is going to be available. I just am such a strong believer in property rights. I think Mr. Wirtz has a right to sell this property if he'd like, and then you go to the zoning, and I can tell you we've not sent the sheriff out on one solar panel site to arrest anybody. There's no noise. There's no adverse aspects that come from solar panels. So that's kind of where I stand with this thing, and I don't know where my colleagues are, but that's the way I see it.
Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
You went once already.
I am older. Is that okay?
Prettier, too.
Okay. Yeah, I'd like to weigh in on this as well. I appreciate the comment because sometimes misinformation's given out as fact, and that's really disheartening to me. And I'm glad that Supervisor Miller pointed that out, that the bond itself to clean them, any cleaning up that needs to be done, there's a bond that's purchased, an insurance policy that pays for that, not tax dollars. And so I appreciate Supervisor Miller pointing that out. I'm a big fan of what you're talking about. There's other alternative fuel that we can utilize to generate power. And I think the solar, you mentioned, what was it you mentioned?
Nuclear.
Nuclear. I've been around, I'm a native Arizonan, and I remember when APS first started to build that nuclear plant to the west of us. And, but I was talking to a friend of mine who's an engineer, and if we were to do anything in the nuclear side, it would be 25, 30 years just going through the permit process and everything just to get to where we actually start to build the facility. So we're a long ways away from that kind of stuff. And with the current environment, with the political environment, we've already decommissioned a coal plant up on the reservation that's no longer there. And then we've got SRP that has their plant up in the St. John's area that is looking to be decommissioned by 2030, from what I've understood.
And the turbines.
And then with the depletion that we've got potentially on the Colorado River, the turbines that are there as well. And so, where are we going to get this resource from? Where are we going to get this energy source from? And especially with the growth and everything else that we're trying to get. We have new industry that's coming up. One that was not mentioned was the LG plant that's going into Queen Creek. And that's going to produce a lot of jobs and opportunities there. And where are they going to get their power from? Well, I guarantee you, SRP has been looking ahead on a lot of these type of things to be able to generate these, to bring in more power. The comment was made about the 22,000. I really don't like the fact that I'm in the dark on that. I really like to see those GPS maps that you're talking about whenever you get a chance, okay? And that should be probably a work session that we talk about as we move forward, because I really like to know where all these, and how did we designate this? That's the other part. So that should be for a work session when we get down the road. You don't need to go into that now. But I really would like to be more educated on that. And who determines that? This is the nodes. Do we talk to the landowners to say, hey, can you be a part of this? Or do we just say, hey, this is where it's good? That's it for a later discussion as we go forward, okay? I don't need any input from that. But this is some of the things that I'm looking at here. And so just moving forward, I pretty much I'm in favor of what we're doing here. I don't want to stand in the way of any private landowner. I'm along with Supervisor Miller, and I believe Supervisor Cavanaugh feels the same way, that they have a right. I remember I used to farm, and I remember coming home one day, and an older gentleman had retired, stopped me. He was on his scooter out in the neighborhood, and he pulled me over, and he started to visit with me, and he talked about how he had farmed out in this area for years and years and years, and he kept encouraging me and he'd lost his money multiple times. He had to refile to reorganize and everything else in the farming. And those of you that are in farming know what I'm talking about. And then the other part was Mr. Nevitt mentioned something along the lines of the contaminants that go into the soil. I mean, I look at the Santan Valley area when it comes to the high nitrates, and a lot of that comes from the farming industry itself, and that needs to be treated properly. And anyway, those are some of my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the objection of my bladder. Folks, we as supervisors get visits from folks, solar and wind, and you wonder if this guy or that guy is a snake oil salesman or not. And it just happens that this company, NextEra, has been up front and forthright on everything, and they're going to pay 100% of the taxes that are due. And let me tell you just real quick. May I share the fire truck story? When NextEra came, I was skeptical, and with what they're doing, and they said, are there community projects? And I said, well, check with the fire departments, make sure they have the resources to take care of any issues that might come up. They checked with Coolidge, Florence, needed nothing. The South Florence Volunteer Fire Department, they met with them, and apparently Larry was inarticulate, and when NextEra said, what do you need? And he said, I need an engine. And they said, how much did it cost? He said, about $85. They said, done. We can take care of that for you. What they didn't realize was that he was talking $85,000, and NextEra understood, I think, $8,500. I may have it a little off. But NextEra made the commitment and followed through, and when on earth do you see that from companies? So call a gut with a little bit of experience. I think this particular company will do what they say, and will be, that property will likely be in good hands. So,
Mr. McClure?
Sure, I'll go. Comp plan has been mentioned a few times, and I think that we need to go back and revisit the comp plan. I know we've talked about freeways and roads, ways coming through, and I think we need to go through and look at where industrial areas should be laid out next to freeways, where we should put, not to stamp on people's property rights, but where are the viable solar areas to be, or the power areas to be, because here's the power lines. I'm looking at this property here earlier. I'm looking at power lines right overhead. That's a great place for it. Instead of I would love to have them out in the middle of nowhere, because quite honestly, I have one by my house that I look out at, and it's like, I'm not so happy about it, but it's there. So I think we really need to go back in a work session, in a few work sessions, and revisit our comp plan and take away. If you look at it, it's these big blobs of color. Well, here's this one that's medium density, and here's high density, and here's this industrial. And we keep doing these minor comp amendments, moving it around. Let's nail it down a little tighter and draw some hard lines and say, here's where these things can be. Then we don't have all these discussions and go for 2 hours on one subject, right? So that's my 2 cents.
Mr. Chair, if I could just add one more thing.
Okay. I'm going to get a red light for you, too.
I probably need it. Right. First of all, you'd be able to buy one of those units from Home Depot. You heard it right here, okay? But the second thing is that when we talk about the comprehensive plan, it took Home Depot 20-plus years before they actually built on the location they're at right now. And that whole entire area has been completely developed out the way that it stands right now. And so when you talk about these things, we're talking about an area that is so wide open right there. 20 years it took them before they finally came into this area. And a big part of that is because the dynamics of the way the retail market and everything else, when you start looking at those things. So we've got to have some kind of flexibility on some of these things, because this is a good land use, I believe, for this particular project. And I think it's only going to be a temporary, or before you retrofit it or whatever you decide to do in the future, who knows where we're going to go with the energy in the future.
Mr. Miller, did you have one more round?
I did, if I may, Mr. Chairman. And I just say, for some reason, I really think that this is anti-green. And I mean, our country is divided. They're uptight about a lot of different things. I don't know if green energy is the best thing in the world for us. I would be using natural gas if I had my way for everything. But that's not where we're at. My point being, you should go to the next level of government, the states and the federal government, who are mandating and pushing this. There may be being subsidized at some level. I don't know, but this, to me, is a land use decision. I don't think a solar farm on this location is a real intrusive type of operation. I think it's a good place, and is property rights are most important.
And I'll go last on the property rights. The family says they don't want to. The family says they don't want to farm it anymore. We can't force them to farm it, and it is their property. So I will ask for a motion. Number 17.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 17 as presented. However, it says here with no stipulations. We don't have anything because they were all opposed. Is there some stipulations that we should put in here?
Comprehensive plan amendments are resolutions.
Okay.
Supervisor Goodman, so they usually do not have stipulations. It's ordinances that have stipulations moving forward when the applicant comes for rezone and pad overlay.
So with that, I recommend approval as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. And with that, we're going to need a 7 or 8 minute break.
Thank you.
With item number 18, approval, disapproval of a resolution for Copper Cactus Resorts. And Evan is going to present on this.
That was a recess for lunch for a second. I'm glad I didn't leave. Board of Supervisors, Mr. Chairman, my name is Evan Evangelopoulos, and I am here to present case SUP 00722. It's a property up north of Queen Valley. It's about 2.5 miles north of Queen Valley. It is a special use permit to operate a bed and breakfast plus 20 campsites on a 20 plus or minus acre site comprised of 2 parcels in the general rural zone. As I mentioned, the subject is about 2.5 miles north of the unincorporated area of Queen Valley and about 6 miles northeast of the intersection of 60 and 79.
I don't think Queen Valley's incorporated, is it?
No, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the applicant is Copper Cactus Resorts. The owner is Elephant Corporation, agent iPlan Consulting, Greg Davis, and the size, as I mentioned, is 20 acres. This is the approximate location of the site. This is a map that shows the site north of Queen Valley, and there's the intersection of 60 and 79 down there. So these are the 2 properties requesting the SUP. This scenario photograph showing the presence of the existing building and some accessory structures. Current zoning is general rural. This is the site plan proposed by the applicant that shows the future campsites and the existing building.
You were waiting for me, or?
No, I was just waiting for you to finish scanning the plan.
All right.
So this is a view looking north. It's pristine, I would say, Sonoran Desert. View looking south. This is the road entry to the property. This is the Elephant Butte, and it really looks like an elephant.
Dead elephant.
This is looking west towards the property. That's the entrance to the property. And items for Board of Supervisors consideration. The special use permit will allow the operation of a bed and breakfast plus 20 campsites on a 20-acre site comprised of 2 parcels in the general rural zone. To date, 3 letters of support have been received regarding the requested special use permit. The property is accessed from North Elephant Butte Road. The subject property is located within the major open space designation of the Pinal County Comprehensive Plan and complies with the recommended use. Granting of the special use permit will require at the time of application for development that the applicant owner submit and secure from the applicable and appropriate federal, state, county, and local regulatory agencies all required applications, plans, permits, supporting documentation, and approvals. A site plan will be required after this. The recommendation is approval with 13 stipulations. I'm open for questions.
Are there any questions or comments? Okay, this is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this?
We have the applicant.
And the applicant, you're going to do a presentation also? Yep.
Before, I think there were some, before we invite the applicant, there were some questions regarding access.
At one time, I think someone tried to close a road back there, but I think they worked through that.
Fine.
So I think that's been rectified.
Okay.
Yes.
I have all the access recorded easements here if
Yeah.
you wanted them to. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, and board members. Just wanted to present myself, Jason Sanks with iPlan Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the owner. Unfortunately, they were not able to be here today. They would have preferred to be, but they had to travel. So I have a 26-slide presentation if you'd like to see it regarding Copper Cactus Ranch. It's a lovely property. You can see the desert. It's gorgeous. We have a number of letters of support. We have no opposition. It's a really fantastic facility.
We've been here this long. We might as well see them. Just flip them fast.
You want to flip them fast? I'm more than happy to. I just had to remember to say good afternoon instead of good morning. So let's do it. Okay. So Copper Cactus Ranch, as Evan alluded, is a 20-acre property. The bed and breakfast is there already. They're seeking to add campsites because it's kind of a hybrid. You can either stay in the bed and breakfast or you can bring your tent. So the slides here, I thank Greg Davis, my compadre in all this, for presenting a very Western-looking slide presentation. You can see this, if you've ever been up the Queen Valley, it's obviously gorgeous. If you go further north, you get to the campsites and the bed and breakfast that they're proposed. It's a really beautiful desert. The site plan really outlays everything, how you get in. The facility is actually gated. It's invitation only. You have to have a reservation. It's open to the public, but only with a reservation. The bed and breakfast itself only has 7 rooms. It's quite small, but it does accommodate up to 18 people. And then as I click through the slides, you can see the stars popping up that shows the buildings, as Evan alluded. There's a swimming pool on site, and parking is right up against the bed and breakfast building. That long, if you can, I think I have a mouse here, but you can kind of see the winding road. That's what takes you out to Elephant Butte, and that's the access that goes south down to Queen Valley and then further on to the Highway 60. So the camping spaces that are proposed are obviously in flat areas. There's nothing proposed within the wash or any protected areas. We reviewed that with staff. This has actually been in process for over 2 years. So initially when we submitted, there was a concern about legal access to this property, not just to this property, but many other properties. So the owners of Copper Cactus Ranch spent 2 years and a significant sum of money with an attorney to secure access easements that benefit them and everybody around them. So the neighbors were quite happy with that. So if there's any concern about access, that's settled, and we do have the handouts here of all the easements. Furthermore, each of the campsites will have shared like water spigot access, picnic tables. It's really nice. If you've ever had a chance to go out there, it's a beautiful facility, and the desert is gorgeous. Again, we could get into the access, quite deeply, but I have the handouts here if you'd like them. But this just shows you what we went through over the last 2 years to get this done. So again, 53 parcels now benefit from legal access, not just the ranch. It was a big undertaking. And so as of 2022, the courts granted the access, and that's why we're back. So we were not able to proceed with the SUP prior because of the access issue, but that's been resolved. And this is kind of an overall illustrative map that shows you where all the easements are and how you get to the ranch, and that they've all been secured with the dates. There's other aspects of the ranch. I'm not sure. I mean, I can go into some detail, but they do a lot of fundraising. They're supported by the fire department. They do a lot of wellness facility sorts of things, lots of events for not just their guests, but the community. They're pretty much loved by the Queen Valley community. And these are just the letters of support. There's actually, I believe Evan has 3, but over the course of 2 years, there's actually been more than 3 letters of support. There's a number of them. And as I click through this, you can see them popping up on the page. Emails, letters, etc. And there is no known opposition to this project. At one point, I think there was somebody that was opposed, but they moved it away. So, one thing to note is that they're a big steward of maintaining the natural desert and its beauty. They've restored that historic ranch and cleaned it up. They work with the Queen Valley Fire District. They do annual hiking trips, and they do lots of cleanup. So for other users of state land, it's nice to have a steward out there that actually goes out and cleans up after others that aren't even their own guests. They do that periodically. So in summary, our request is just to get your support after a unanimous P&Z recommendation and staff support, community support, and we hope you approve our SUP. I'm happy to answer questions.
There seems to be a lack of wedding venues in the whole state. Is it possible, is that under the use to do weddings there, and is that permitted?
Chairman City, that's a good question. I believe you need a specific zoning district with an SUP for a wedding venue.
I see Evan shaking his head, too.
Yeah, I've looked at other properties, not this property. I'm not aware that they've done any weddings at Copper Cactus Ranch. It's more of a retreat, resort, getaway, wellness facilities, but I've never heard of a wedding there.
No plan to shift to that later?
I spent about 3 hours with the owners at the neighborhood meeting, and nobody came. But we talked for quite some time. I never heard anything about a wedding.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay, this is the public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this? Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a vote or a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve item number 18 is presented with 13 stipulations.
Is there a second? I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that's unanimous. Item number 19 is another public hearing on wastewater franchise agreement with Pinal County and Global Water. Megan.
Good afternoon, Chairman, members of the board. Megan Villegas with Public Works. I'm here on item 19 and 20, Global Water. So item 19 will be Global Water, a franchise agreement between Global Water and Global Water, Palo Verde Utilities Company, and Pinal County. Under Statute 4283, the county is authorized to regulate and manage the public right-of-ways within its jurisdiction. We're here requesting the vote from the Board of Supervisors to grant the use of the agreement for the use of our county right-of-ways. I do have a representative from Global Water, Tim Sabo, if you have any questions. But we're just requesting the approval of this franchise agreement.
Are there any questions? Okay, There's no presentation, so I'm going to open the public hearing. This is a public hearing. Would anyone like to speak on this? I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Chairman, I move that we approve item number 19 as presented.
Is there a second? I heard a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that passes. Thank you. Item 20 is related. So.
Yes. Item 20 is Global Water Santa Cruz Water Company requesting a water franchise agreement with Pinal County. Under the same statute, the county is authorized to regulate and manage the public right-of-ways within its jurisdictions. We're requesting the approval of the water franchise agreement between Pinal County and Global Water Santa Cruz Water Company.
Any questions or comments? This is another public hearing, and anyone like to speak on this? I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve item 20 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that one passes.
Thank you.
Item 21, discussion approval renewal of a lease agreement between Pinal County and Thunderbird Arena Community Council. Joe.
Good afternoon, Chair, Board. Joe Ortiz, Pinal County Public Works Deputy Director. This is a renewal request for a lease agreement between Pinal County as the landlord and Thunderbird Arena Community Council as a tenant. The property is located at 12365 North Ralston Road. This is in the community of Thunderbird Farms, just west of the city limits of Maricopa, for reference. The Thunderbird Arena Community Council operates this property as a horse arena and utilizes it for equestrian events. The current lease expires soon, but the lease states that we have an option to renew 4 times, 4 renewals. Both parties are in agreement with the renewal. This will be the second of those 4 renewal options. The renewal term of 5 years will be effective 2/1/23 and expires 1/31/2028. We do charge a $1 per year rental fee, but Thunderbird Arena Community does pay for the utilities and the maintenance of the site. This is considered open space lease, so just for information. With that, staff recommends the approval of the lease, and I would take any questions if you have them.
Are there any questions? I don't see any. I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve item 21 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And it's unanimous.
Thank you.
Number 22, presentation and update of the board on current progress with unified command and partnership between Public Works and Public Health. Emergency manager. We've got Corey, Tasha, or Andrew.
There's 3 people left in the room. Let's guess which one, right?
Who's who?
We just wanted to, Board Chairman, Vice Chair, members of the board, Tasha Spears, Director of Public Health, Andy Smith, Director of Public Works. We wanted to show you what a unified command was. Actually, we're stalling because the 2 that are making the presentation are outside having a meeting.
However,
Do they know we're looking for them?
We're really excited about this partnership moving forward. So,
Without further ado, here is Corey.
So sorry, I was pulled away from somebody way higher up than me. Good afternoon, Chairman Surdy, members of the board. My name is Corey Redden, and I am the Pinal County Emergency Manager and the Deputy Director of Public Health for the Pinal County Public Health Services District. I'd like to update all of you on the newly designed structure of the Office of Emergency Management under the Unified Command structure with Public Health and Public Works. Oh, sorry. Sorry. There we go. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so here's an illustration of what the structure looks like. In October, I was appointed the county emergency manager and promoted the deputy director. Under the unified command structure, I confer with both the health director of the Pinal County Public Health Services District and the public works director, Andy Smith, and Dr. Spears is who I confer with. And it's been a great collaboration, great communication among the three of us, and also including Deputy Director Joe Ortiz. I also oversee 4 divisions under public health, which also includes the Office of Emergency Management. So as we look at that structure, we have myself and then administrative manager, Ms. Courtney Prock, and she oversees the day-to-day operations of the Office of Emergency Management and oversees the staff that is assigned to this office. So that's what that structure looks like. And then keeping in mind, too, I want to emphasize that this structure aligns with the county leadership's vision and also with the county's core values. So especially with both public health and public works, we have a lot of statutory compliance requirements under various grants that both departments have. So it's very important to ensure that that statutory compliance is maintained. We've also designed the Office of Emergency Management under the Unified Command Structure to ensure an increase in communication and also an increase of efficiency in the operations. And we combined, with both large departments, we were able to combine both workforces and resources together in this structure. And we do this all in an innovative approach. So, why does this work? In the Unified Command Structure, both departments are always activated for the same emergency responses. So we're always in the Emergency Operations Center together, and these are the examples of the types of emergency responses that both our departments have requirements to respond to. So that's kind of a picture of why this just makes sense. So we continue to transition into this unified structure. We are assessing grant deliverables, written response plans, current projects with the team, and Ms. Prock and I are conducting outreach to our external partners. Those include our cities and towns, their emergency management offices, law enforcement agencies, fire districts, fire departments, and we're also connecting with our internal partners, such as the Pinal County Sheriff's Office and our communications and marketing departments, just as a few examples. Now, the next slide is really just a preview of the next agenda item that I was going to defer to Deputy County Manager Mary Ellen Shepard. However, that is going to now be the Budget and Finance Director, Angie Woods. But in the meantime, do you guys have any questions or need any clarification on the structure and the information that I've provided to you?
Looks like no.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
And that was for information only.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
23, discussion, approval, disapproval of request to create new job classifications. And I don't see Mary Ellen. So,
good afternoon, Chairman. Sorry for the last-minute change. Mary Ellen wasn't able to be here at this moment. Chairman Surdy, members of the board, Angie Woods, Director of the Office of Management and Budget. Today I'm here seeking your approval to create two new classifications for our Emergency Management Division and 3 for the Office of Budget and Finance. Although these are completely different areas, the reasons behind our coming before you today are similar. We are needing to update the classifications to more accurately reflect the duties being performed, the skills and qualifications required consistent with these duties and responsibilities, and we are needing to ensure the classifications reflect the value placed upon similar roles in our labor market so that we can effectively recruit and retain the workforce required to meet our community and our county needs and comply with applicable standards, policies, and laws. In emergency management, the positions are currently classified using a general administrative classification, administrative specialist senior. This classification fails to adequately address the unique skill sets and functions which both include administrative and operational support, as well as planning and execution of emergency responses. The new classifications being proposed address these deficiencies. In the Office of Budget and Finance, the new classifications reflect the county-wide scope of responsibility encompassing a number of different financial and business areas and include enhanced qualifications consistent with the role. The new classifications also reflect the fact that these positions act on behalf of the entire county and provide professional finance and accounting services in compliance with standards, state and federal laws. The Office of Budget and Finance has had significant difficulty in recruiting, retaining both qualified candidates. We've also had issues with filling existing positions under the current classifications. Myself and others here today that are affected by these changes are present to assist in responding to any questions if you have any.
Are there any questions?
How many total people, and you might not have the answer, do these 5 items or 6 items impact? Is that just 6 people?
It is not just 6 people. For the Office of Budget and Finance, we have, let me try to count in my head. Approximately 10 positions that those 3 classifications would affect. And there are 4 in the Office of Emergency Management.
Mr. Chair, this works toward our objective of placing the right people in the right job and being able to create the pay scales to create the retention that we need for those jobs. Is that correct?
Absolutely. This is the first step in that process.
Yeah.
County's not getting any smaller anytime soon, I don't think. Any comments, questions? I think we're ready to ask for a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I am going to declare a conflict on this one.
Okay.
And I'm emailing Natasha right now.
So he doesn't need to step out, he's just not going to vote. Okay, I'll ask for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve item number 23 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Thank you.
Any discussion on future requests for future items?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We were given a memo today in the exec session. I think that if at all possible, I'd like to see staff present that in an open meeting. And it was in reference to Virginia Ross's position and contract. So if we could place that on an agenda in the future for transparency.
In that spirit, I think that is a good idea. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
That we should consider studying the ground and any potential toxins under panels. Maybe add that as a request to our environmental health. And that was maybe
That
just a
info's
discussion
probably out there. We just need somebody to give us a report on all that, right?
And yeah, Mr. Miller has a
Yes.
Well, I think that there's somebody has been doing some type of study. I would like them to do that as a presentation to us. And then if that might be a stipulation or requirement that their sites are tested on a regular basis to confirm that they are not contaminating. I mean, we have general inspections on a whole lot of things that are ongoing, so that might. But if there's absolutely no sign or no information that shows any contaminations are happening, then I don't think we would make it a stipulation. But I couldn't find anything in the little bit of research that I did. Not that I spent hours on it, but I couldn't find anybody that could prove that there were contaminants. Are we good with that? Is that?
So, Leo, is that something you got somebody on your team can put together?
Yeah, Chairman, we'll work on that. We'll include that in the work session we do on solar as a whole, because that's obviously a determining factor in your decision making. So we'll include that as a piece of that.
Okay.
And we're not really doing wind, so we don't have to worry about chopping up birds. Right? Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could just get a point of clarification, the request from Supervisor Miller on the memo that was provided for Virginia Ross, a legal analysis, I should say.
The legal analysis.
Yeah. If it's okay with the board, you are going to be scheduling a work session on election-related matters. Would you like to have it on that same session, or would you like to have it as a separate session?
Well, I'll defer to the chair.
It doesn't relate, but we could do everything together, and it's kind of we're getting a lot of questions on that situation. And we now have some answers, and we'd like to have the answers out there to the public.
I just wanted to know if I needed to combine it or do a separate one. So I'm hearing they'll do a separate one sooner than later.
Yes. Anyone else? And it says I have to ask for a motion to adjourn, but I don't think I need a motion. I can just adjourn.
You're the man.